Check 1, 2. I think that's it. I think we're getting a signal now.
We're going to find out in 15 seconds.
In about 15 seconds, we'll find out. Good thing Garrett is so cute to look at. Said hitting machine 145.
Who do you think that is?
Who
hits things?
I don't know.
Who a baseball player would hit things?
Really?
Larry.
Larry's in the chat. Can you guys hear us now? Can you hear us now?
Yay!
Okay.
Dude.
Maybe we should always do a check before we... No, we usually do a sound check, and I don't know what happened, but we're on now.
Let me say this, though. To your defense, okay, is that you put...
Thank you.
I put a lot of time into it, but you two put so much time into it. So, I mean, we're working all the way up until we're about to go on.
I was up to 1 in the morning yesterday on this.
And so it's just...
But
wild.
anyway, so Garrett, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good.
Thursday nights are my favorite.
I do like Thursdays. Pam, how you doing?
I'm good.
Okay, so we'll try this again. You know what's funner than this show?
Nothing.
Evel Knievel stunt cycle. That's what.
You've been talking about that forever.
It's almost like we're doing a commercial, and we wrote a script.
Yeah. Randy can probably vouch for me.
Randy can vouch for me. Everybody had one back in the 70s, man. It's fun. It's
that's
fun.
cool.
Yeah, the original ones are like $400 to $600.
What?
Yeah, and they just now reissued it, so I was excited. I was like a little kid, and me and Lakin made a ramp and jumped over shoe boxes and stuff.
Oh, cool. And then you put it back in the box?
So much fun. So much fun.
Is it in the box right now?
No, it's it's out there. And if you notice when you walked in, there was a ramp we built out of cardboard.
That's what that was?
It was.
Neat.
It was. All right, everybody. So Tim Bray, how you doing? D. Berlin. I did all these earlier. No one heard. And Larry, how you doing? Regina, Kay's Creation. Hello. Britton Mauser.
Hey,
hello.
Britton, what's up, dude?
Sabrina Dowdy.
Hi, Sabrina.
Hey, Sabrina. How are you? And
New Zealand Mysteries.
New Zealand Mysteries, yes. Thank you so much, New Zealand, for
Hey,
showing up and all the nice. They always have nice comments.
Hey, and first name, last name. Thank you if you're tuning in.
We lost Italian in Laguna. I don't know where he hasn't been around for a while.
He'll come back.
He liked the Zodiac thing.
He'll be back.
Yeah, he gave us a nice donation actually.
Yeah, he did.
So, anyway, are you guys ready for this show? Can I get a hell yeah?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hey, this one's bizarre. It's
this one. Yeah, so I did. You guys got to remember, we cram we only have a few days to cram all this stuff, and it's 25 pages, Garrett.
Yes.
And today, Garrett is going to be reading some of this for you guys, right?
Yay!
Yay! Let's hear it. Wait, you see, because I didn't hit the deal.
Yeah, we're ready. Yeah, you did it. You got it.
All right. So, shall we get? Now, watch me go to the scene, and
it messes up.
And they'll see the slides, but they won't hear the vocals. It's actually possible because we had a technical problem with this all day.
When do we not have a technical problem?
True.
I know.
Great point.
So when you guys let me know if you can hear me during the slideshow. If not, then we'll just 86 the slideshow. Right? Dun, dun, dun. God, look at how long it takes. We're watching it live, and then we look over it on YouTube. And
Do you think it has something to do with the weather or no?
I don't know. Oh, speaking of weather, God, 15 inches of snow coming our way.
Yep.
So can you guys still hear us? We're on a different scene here, so sometimes it gets messed up as well. Hey, Mel, how are you? You're just stopping to say hello. Appreciate it. I know you've got other YouTubers that are more important than our show, apparently, right? Okay, so without further ado, I'm taking that everybody can hear me. So
are we good, Pamela, you think? Okay.
You guys hear everything, right? Yes, we can hear you. Okay. All right, so Garrett's going to start this out. Let's go.
Okay, on May 5th, 1993, 3 8-year-old boys, Stephen Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, were reported missing in West Memphis, Arkansas. The first report of the police was made by Byers' adoptive father, John Mark Byers, around 7 p.m.
Hello, Stephen.
Don't do that. First off, no laughing. Secondly, wait on the
Hey man, this show's all about fun. We are going to
It-
laugh and have a good time, and I want everybody in chat room to have a good time as well.
that Mark Byers impersonation though. That'll come a little bit later.
My son's David.
It's a really good impression.
It is.
Mark Byers makes this report around 7 p.m. The boys were allegedly last seen together by 3 neighbors, who in affidavits told of seeing them playing and riding their bikes together around 6:30 p.m. the evening they disappeared. Initial police searches made that night were limited. Friends and neighbors also conducted a search that night, which included a cursory visit to the location where the bodies were later found.
Am I supposed to have been going to a slide already?
Go to pick 2, baby.
All right. This is now. Let me stop you for a
Yeah.
minute. This is what the entrance looks like now. You can see that it's quite a bit different. For you guys who are familiar with the case and seen the original pictures, this you can tell there's a difference. But
lot different.
the gate is obviously fallen down and everything. So I'm sorry, Garrett. You go right
No,
ahead.
you're good. A more thorough police search for the children began around 8 a.m. on May 6th. Searchers canvassed all West Memphis, but focused primarily on Robin Hood Hills, where the boys were reported last seen. Despite a shoulder-to-shoulder search of Robin Hood Hills, by a human chain, searchers found no sign of the missing boys.
This is a aerial view, and if you look down there, you can see. God, I wish I had a pointer, but you can see that little pipe bridge. That's where you walk. That's where you'd walk across.
Bottom left corner.
Yeah, and then it goes over to the right, and that's where the bodies
Hey,
were
so
found.
is this picture the picture of the time or the current picture? Because it's vastly different, right?
Yeah, that's probably
Of the time, I believe. Because
of the time because it looks like there's more. Yeah, it's a lot more flat now.
Right. Okay, so around 1:45 p.m., juvenile parole officer Steve Jones spotted a boy's black shoe floating in a muddy creek that led to a major drainage canal in Robin Hood Hills. A thorough search of the ditch revealed the bodies of the 3 boys. They had been stripped naked and were hogtied with their own shoelaces. Their right ankles were tied to their right wrists behind their backs, the same with their left arms and their legs. Their clothing was found in the creek, some of it twisted around sticks that had been thrust into the muddy ditch bed. The clothing was mostly turned inside out. 2 pairs of the boys' underwear were never recovered. Christopher Byers had lacerations to various parts of his body and mutilation of his scrotum and his penis.
Okay, pick 3. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, we're at pick 5. You good? Okay. Although the boys' bikes were recovered in the ditch by the bridge, also the boys' bikes were recovered in the ditch by the bridge.
Yeah.
So he ditched the clothes, the bike.
Yeah, the bikes were originally found. They were thrown in the water, and which we'll talk about why.
That could have been, right?
Why even get rid of the bikes?
And the clothes sticks under water.
Yeah, they took the clothes on a stick, or he or
Right,
whoever,
right.
and shoved it down into the mud.
Psychopaths, man. Okay, pick 6. The case was led by Chief Inspector Gary Gitchell.
Boo.
Boo, Gary. Soon after the bodies were removed from Robin Hood Hills, rumors began circulating that the killings might have been the work of devil worshippers. Inspector Gitchell did nothing to squelch the rumors when he told reporters that his department was investigating the possibility that the murders were connected with cult activity.
Because of the satanic panic.
Right. Yep. Is that the guy?
That is Gary. Yeah, he was he was the head of the case, and he pretty much he's a crook, man. I mean, he knew the evidence was bad. He made it all work for law enforcement.
Yeah.
And just went with it.
Just ran with those that cultural cue. Got
absolutely.
you. The autopsies by forensic pathologist Frank J. Peretti indicated that Byers died of multiple injuries, while Moore and Branch died of multiple injuries with drowning. Police initially suspected the boys had been raped. However, later expert testimony disputed this finding. Prosecution experts claimed Byers' wounds were the result of a knife attack and that he had been purposely castrated by the murderer. Police believe the boys were assaulted and killed at the location where they were found. On May 7th, Steve Jones, the juvenile officer who first discovered the bodies, interviewed a troubled local teenager, Damian Eccles, who is shown here.
Yep.
Who had been under the watchful eye of another juvenile officer, Jerry Driver. Eccles was a 17-year-old dropout with a history of psychiatric problems, including major depression. Eccles wrote dark poems, dressed mostly in black, wore long hair, had a tattoo on his upper arm, and was a self-described Wiccan. During part of a several-month stay with his mother in Oregon in 1992, he was sent to a psychiatric hospital twice by court order, and once by his own parents. His parents were concerned about his involvement in what they described as witchcraft and devil worship, and wanted him out of their home. In September 1992, Damien's parents told his mental health physician they were frightened of him and what he can do, not only to them, but to other children that reside in the home. Eccles was admitted to a psychiatric ward and placed under suicide watch. Returning to Arkansas in the fall, Eccles briefly entered a juvenile detention center before being transferred to a psychiatric hospital in Little Rock after biting and attempting to suck blood from the arm of another detainee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Well, he had some issues.
He did.
Following his release from the Little Rock Hospital, Eccles returned to West Memphis, where he met regularly with a social worker at a mental health center. The social worker reported in her notes that Eccles told her he might become another Charles Manson or Ted Bundy. Jerry Driver's knowledge of Eccles convinced him that Damien might have a lot to do with the murders, and he pushed his suspicions with members of the West Memphis Police Department. Police questioned Eccles about the Robin Hood Hills murders 3 separate times between May 7 and May 10th, twice at the trailer park where he lived and once at the police station. Eccles told investigators he'd never heard of the 3 boys and that the person who committed the murders was obviously sick. He said he spent the evening of May 5th at home with his mother, talking on the phone with 2 girlfriends in Memphis. 2 girlfriends?
Yeah.
Dang, dude. 2 girlfriends. Are you trying? Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay. In West Memphis. In his notes of the police station interview, Lieutenant James Sudbury reported that stated, "The killer is probably someone local and that he won't run." He noted that Eccles likes to read books by Stephen King. Oh my God.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Just to stop you there. I mean, because he read Stephen King's book, that was brought up
So
as evidence.
the killer could be 5 million people.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But the next picture, keep going.
Okay. He noted that Eccles likes to read books by Stephen King and has evil across his written across his left knuckles. Eccles willingly took a polygraph test. The administering officer concluded that Eccles recorded significant responses indicative of deception. In addition to Eccles, investigators focused their attention on Jason Baldwin, a friend of Damien's who also had quote unquote evil inked across it. Oh no, evil inked across his left knuckles. Well, there's so much like speculation about why these kids are evil. So that's why when I saw it in quotations, like, oh, here we go. They read Stephen King or, you know.
So let's look at this picture real quick. This is State's exhibit. This was evidence in this case. And can you guess why this was evidence? By just looking at this picture of Jason Baldwin, which for Pam, you can't see it yet.
Metallica.
Yeah. He has a Metallica shirt on. So, hey, man, he's definitely a devil worshiper and a Satanist. And,
That means you are too, and me.
well,
and
I mean,
everybody.
That's what's sad about this. And, I could have been picked out when I was in high. I mean, I wore Ozzy, Black Sabbath shirts and
It probably should
Iron
have been more
Maiden.
concerned about that mullet.
he does have the mullet of all mullets.
No, that's
though.
actually a curlet.
Oh,
a curlet.
Yeah, a curly mullet.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what we would call a curlet, at least in my circle.
he's rocking it though.
Dude, yeah. Party, her business in the front, party in the back.
That's right, man.
Hey, I will say, like, the first time I saw those 3 mugshots, that's sad. But I was like, damn, look at that mullet. Kind of like shocking.
Yeah,
It's like,
but that face, that's a baby.
you know.
yeah.
I know. And we'll talk a lot more about him in a little bit because I can't wait to talk about like the Alfred plea and stuff. So
Yeah, towards the
Right.
most favorite part of my show is going to be towards the end when we actually discuss the people that may be involved in what I kind of think would have to happen for this to happen.
we're kind of a character-driven show, though.
Yeah,
Like we really invest time in these guys. Okay.
we do.
So, like Eccles, Baldwin denied any involvement in the killings, but detectives on the case increasingly thought otherwise. Investigations might have stalled were it not for the work of a local waitress named Vicky Hutchison. Hutchison told police she suspected the killing were cult-related and that she was willing to play detective. She believed that her connection with the 17-year-old neighbor, Jessie Miss Kelly, who sometimes babysat her children and mowed her yard, might provide an opportunity for her to explore the secret life of Damien Eccles. stand-up guy watching your kids and mowing your lawn. Jeez.
Yeah, right.
Okay, go to pick 10. Dude, could you do something right for once? Can you please go to pick
I know.
10?
It's not all that fun reading, is it?
I love it.
Do you?
I'm actually finding this quite enjoyable.
Okay, well, good, because you'll be the new reader, because I
No.
hate it.
Okay.
I hate it.
Hutchinson told authorities that Miss Kelly, who was mildly mentally challenged, had told her about Eccles, his friend, who drank blood and stuff. And that's in quotations. With the blessing of the West Memphis Police Department, Hutchinson asked Miss Kelly to arrange an introduction to Damien, who she said would like to go out, who she would like to go out with. Jesse agreed, and shortly thereafter brought Damien over to Hutchinson's house and made introductions. So, girlfriend number 3.
Right.
What exactly happened between Hutchinson and Eccles became clear only years later, but for the benefit of local law enforcement authorities, Vicky told quite a tale. She told investigators that on the night of May 19th, she and Jesse were driven by Damien in a red Ford Escort. Odd, given that Eccles had no car and was never once known to have driven one. What's that? To an S-Bat?
To an S-Bat. I bet Pam knows what an S-Bat is.
What is an S-Bat?
It's a gathering of witches.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she's claiming that
Yeah.
Eccles and Miss Kelly drive her to an S-Bat, which is a gathering of witches.
Yeah, but she called it more of a satanic, it was more like a satanic ritual type of party thing that they were doing.
Weird.
She used the word Satan, but an S-Bot actually is a Wiccan term.
Okay, so this was in a field outside of town where she encountered 10 young people, each with faces and arms painted black, stripping off their clothes and touching each other. She claimed those participating in the orgy used nicknames like Spider, Snake, and Lucifer. Offended by the naked activity, Hutchinson... never mind. That's where you're talking about, look. Hutchinson, according to her story, asked Damien to drive her back home, which he did, leaving Jesse at the orgy. In late May, Vicky Hutchinson and her 8-year-old son, Aaron, met with detectives. While Vicky shared her story about the S-Bat, Aaron told authorities that he and the three murdered boys often visited Robin Hood Woods together, and that on one visit to the woods, they saw 5 men sitting in a circle chanting and doing what men and ladies do. On June 2nd, West Memphis police polygraphed Vicky Hutchinson.
Now, again, that was an 8-year-old kid.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, we're going to take his word for sure.
Right, yeah, definitely. The police picked up Jesse and Miss Kelly for questioning about 9 a.m. the next day. Jesse gave a confession to the police that all 3 of them were involved in the murders. Jesse initially denies... Excuse me. Jesse initially denies...
Did you get your pages mixed? He
Oh,
got
I
his
did. I
pages
didn't get- I
mixed
didn't-
up, I
I
bet.
didn't- I didn't get mine. Who did this?
You're the one that had the pages. I didn't touch
Jesse
them.
initially denies.
Technical difficulties.
No, you're good. We just need page 8, dude.
You know, we...
That's 10 seconds.
Hang on.
Otherwise, we get a copyright.
Hey, actually...
What page were you on, Garrett?
Page 8. You know what's crazy, though, is that whenever this printed, there were 2 blank pages. So I
Well,
guarantee you
that
was page
I'll
8.
tell you what. I'll pull it up for you right here on the
Thank you.
word. So you need page 8.
I need page 8.
Okay, Jesse's confession and the tape confession right here. Jesse states that while in Robin Hood Woods, is that where you're at?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me double check.
And then once we get to the page that you have, we'll
Okay,
go
gotcha.
for this. Okay, go ahead.
Jesse's confession. In a taped confession, Jesse states that while in Robin Hood Woods with Damien Eccles and Jesse Baldwin, he watched Eccles hit Chris Byers in the head with his fist and bruised him up real bad. And then Jason turned around and hit Stephen Branch. Then the other one took off. Michael Moore took off running. So I chased him and grabbed him and hold him until they got there, and then I left. And again, this is...
That's him speak.
Yes, that's him
He
speak.
had, yeah.
Okay.
Some bad grammar. there.
Within hours of after securing Jesse's confession, Deputy Prosecutor John Fogelman appeared before a municipal court judge for warrants that would allow searches of the homes of Miss Kelly, Baldwin, and Eccles. By 10:30 p.m. on June 3rd, 1993, all 3 teenagers were rounded up and each charged with 3 counts of capital murder. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Oh my God, dude.
I mean, should we talk about that confession or we wait?
Let's wait.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. At a press conference the next morning, held to announce the arrest, Gary Gitchell, this guy, Gary Gitchell is asked how confident he felt about the case on a 1 to 10 scale, and guess what this clown says?
What does he say, Garrett?
11.
Yeah, he was cocky. You know, he even admitted years later that he goes, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, it was a mistake.
It was a mistake because it put more pressure on law enforcement to crack the case. I mean,
He pigeonholed the case, man.
he very much did. He was, he's a bad guy.
On August 4th, 1993, Judge David Burnett presided at a pretrial hearing in Marion, Arkansas. Burnett ruled that Miss Kelly should be tried separately from Eccles and Baldwin. Burnett also ruled that the state could introduce Jesse's confession, despite defense arguments that it was obtained under coercive circumstances. In another important pretrial ruling, Burnett concludes that all 3 defendants should be tried as adults rather than juveniles.
What do you think about that? So let's stop for just a minute. If you got a capital murder case and you got a 16-year-old, do you try him as an adult? What? And Pam, you join in on this too. What do you guys think?
I think
I put the mic.
I think the confession from Jesse,
It shouldn't have went any further.
Right.
should have been pitched out.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a young man with an intellectual disability that, did not really understand the circumstances he was in and what a confession was going to mean.
Right.
All he wanted to do is get home to his dad.
Exactly.
And he thought by answering all these questions that they would release him and he would go home. He had no idea. I'm admitting to murder and I'm not going home tonight.
Well, and all having kids, can we not all agree that, like, if you're like a 16 or 17-year-old that commits any kind of crime that results in like a murder or death, there's probably something wrong with you.
Yeah, I think that's probably
Pretty fair to say, right?
statement.
Like in one way or another, whether it be like mental, a mental disability, a psychological disability, or maybe even a ridiculous home life. And so
Yeah,
that's where I'm at, like with
All 3 of these kids had that.
right. And so that's where I'm at with trying youth offenders as adults.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just think it's like I'm completely against it, honestly. I think
Right,
there's other
so-
ways to remedy this.
Well, and to flash back to something that I said on last week's podcast, the human brain, the frontal lobe, does not complete development until the age of 24.
35 in this room.
52.
So,
Yeah.
we're talking about
Definitely.
kids that are still growing, and maybe growing up rough, growing up hard, making bad choices, doing
Maybe
bad things.
But playing a devil's advocate, at 16, you know from right from wrong, right? Maybe. Okay, let's say, we know because of Miss Kelly, his intellectual challenges that he had, Jason Baldwin. What do you think about that, Pam? He didn't have any disabilities that we know of. I mean, he had a rough home life. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, do you guys...
I think in a sense, though, when you grow up in that type of environment, you are handicapped to a degree.
Right.
With the idea that you grow up thinking that's what normal is.
And that's my point. Is that like the only conclusion that I would be able to draw is that if you're committing this kind of crime at that age, that there is something wrong with you.
Right.
I'm not saying like it's not like you're not at fault for it. I mean, you're definitely like you committed the crime, but I'm saying there's some other extenuating circumstances that lead you to be abnormal. And we could, I guess, make that argument even about adults. But when you're under the care of your parents at your home, I just think it's like a different kind of level.
So what do we? So let's just say for a moment, these guys did it. Okay, what do we do with them? If we don't, if we're not trying them as adults, do we go ahead? Do we get them into psych hospitals? What do we do?
I think you would have. I mean, that's what I think you would have.
What do you guys in the chat think? You've got a 16-year-old kills somebody, and I'm not saying they did that at all. I'm just saying, killed a little boy. Do we send them to prison for life, or do we get them help, put them in a psychiatric hospital? What do you guys think? And I'll let Pam kind of monitor that. Yeah, it's
Man, that's deep. That's a tough one.
It's tough because
Yeah.
I
agree.
think you do know. When I was 16, if I killed somebody, I know that would be
But
wrong.
your childhood is different than somebody else's. Was my argument, though.
Yeah, but then then we can say, what about the adult that had the bad childhood?
No, for sure.
You know
For
what I'm
sure.
saying?
Yeah. But I think there's an
So
age
does
of
he
reasoning.
go to prison
though.
or does he go to? I mean, 'cause
Well, I think there's a
you
lot
can
of people that shouldn't be in prison that are in prison.
Yeah, I do too. But I mean, well,
Like,
if
you know-
you're a murderer, I think you need to be in prison. But-
Yeah. Oh, definitely. No, definitely. But there are even some cases of murder where somebody's just out of their dang mind and just,
Larry says they did it.
Larry doesn't even know what the hell he's talking about.
Larry doesn't.
Get out of here, Larry.
But yeah, I mean,
He says fry him.
crime. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people that probably believe
Almost
that.
happened.
It almost happened to Damien for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So do you want to continue? Are you
Garrett.
caught up on? Go ahead.
What's boo hawk?
I have no idea. Did Larry say that?
Oh, boo hoo.
Did Larry say
Learn,
boo?
learn to type, Larry.
Bohawk. That's Jason,
Larry's new name, Larry Bohawk.
Yeah, that's someone's hairstyle. The Bohawk.
He says you're too soft.
Oh man, you got to be though. I mean, I don't know.
It is. No, that's an important philosophical question that you're posing, though.
And brings up a good point. If they were guilty of this crime, I believe they should be tried as adults. The crime was awful.
I mean, it was.
Yeah, and
know?
who said that? Anne?
And
Yeah, I mean, and that's like I was saying. Even though I had a better childhood, I mean, take the childhood thing out of it. At 16, I think you know wrong and right.
Well, I'm not
Right.
even
No.
thinking about my own. I'm not thinking about my own self. I'm thinking about my kids or like your kids. Like if your kid committed this, you would have to be like in your head. The only way I'd be able to rationalize it is there's something really, really wrong with my kid's brain that
Right.
needs to be fixed. And I just don't know if prison's going to do the job of fixing it. But
prison doesn't fix things.
it doesn't fix things. But I think the other side of that argument would be, well, why does this person deserve to be fixed when they just brutally murdered 3 8-year-olds?
Yeah, it's
So that's where the argument would change.
It's a tough argument, but it's something to look at. I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I think environmental factors, like you said, have a lot to do with it. But
Where do you draw the line?
oh man, I don't know.
I know. Well, that's the question you're asking. though.
Because once what you just said when you said if it's your kid, I'm like, oh,
no, I know, but
Then
that's how I'm
I
looking
get,
at
then
it.
I get
though.
soft and go, oh no, you can't do that to Dylan.
I know.
No, no.
Why do you go to Dylan first?
It would definitely be Katie.
No, because
Exactly.
because
No, it would definitely be Cass, dude. I'll be straightforward.
statistically, males commit
They do.
violent crimes.
Right.
So that's the reason I went to Dylan. But I mean, of course, Dylan would never do that. But
Right.
But yeah,
But no,
you
that's
put it,
my
no,
point,
you put
though.
it in a total
Yeah.
perspective for me after when you say my son, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I
You'd
don't-
be looking at that and be like, dude, something is definitely
where
wrong.
would you draw the line? I just don't.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know how you can possibly draw the line. It is a case by case basis.
Yeah,
Yeah. Tim
I mean-
says, unfortunately, I think there are some people who will never get better no matter how much help
That's
they get.
true.
So
Right.
it's a tough issue.
that's true, and especially if there's, I mean, which wouldn't. Well, I guess in this case, it could have the pedophilia thing. They say is the most hardest thing. Well, they say you can't cure it.
Right.
That those people are going to be like that and fight those urges the rest of their life.
Right. Yeah.
That's what most psychologists say. You can't fix that.
Yeah.
All right. So, are you caught up on the pages, or do
No,
I need to pull it up?
I got like 2 last things on that page. No, you're
Okay.
good. You're good.
All right.
Okay. Let me just start here. Burnett concludes that all 3 defendants should be tried as adults rather than juveniles. On January 18th, 1994, jury selection begins in the Miss Kelly trial. February 5th, 1994, a jury convicts Miss Kelly on 1 count of first-degree murder and 2 counts of second-degree murder. Hey, can you stop scrolling? He is sentenced to 40
You guys can't see it, but I'm scrolling this really fast so Garrett can't keep up.
He is sentenced to 40 years in prison. He is sent to a facility in Pine Bluff. Now I'm caught up.
Okay.
Okay. February 19th, 1994 is the Eccles-Baldwin trial opens in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Jury selection begins. February 28th, 1994. Opening arguments are presented in the Eccles-Baldwin trial. Okay.
Let's see if I got a picture here somewhere. We're getting ready to talk about that here in a minute. I'll leave that up, but I'll take us back. So now we're at the evidence part.
Man.
There really wasn't any evidence against these kids. There
Yeah,
was
we
no.
just
There was.
skip.
Well, yeah, there was no physical evidence. This was all circumstantial and just a whole witch hunt.
Absolutely.
It just, I mean,
It doesn't help when Damien admits to being a witch.
yeah,
Right.
well, and especially in West Memphis, Arkansas. I mean, it's predominantly the whole state of Arkansas is, and I've got relatives there. They're very, very religious. They're into that. It's Bible Belt,
Right.
you know, and any beliefs that you have other than the traditional Christianity is Satan.
Well, and kind of
It's
like
different.
and kind of like in Delphi too, a smaller town,
Yeah,
a law enforcement that hasn't dealt with something like this before.
right. Yeah, well, they've never dealt with anything like this.
Jeez. I mean,
But the evidence against the West Memphis Three all was circumstantial. It was bad circumstantial evidence at best. Law enforcement believe this was a satanic ritual killing. This happened during the time of the Satanic Panic that started in the 80s, and we can talk about the Satanic Panic because me and Randy Southwell lived through that time.
well, what I was telling you before the show is, I was actually the same age as these boys that were brutally murdered.
Yeah,
So I was born in 1985. I was 8 in 1993. So that was all brand new to me. And you have like
That's-
the Satanic Panic.
the
That's
the whole thing started.
bizarre.
I remember about 1981, Ozzy Osbourne released "Diary of a Madman," which had a upside down cross on it. I think, if I remember right.
God forbid.
God forbid, and which is with Ozzy, and Randy will remember this. Me and Randy went to heavy metal concerts all through the '80s, and there would be church groups outside of these places handing pamphlets out, going, "Don't go in, you'll be possessed by the devil," and just saying horrible things about us because we were going to go to this rock show. And that started in '81, and then all the TV evangelists got on the bandwagon.
Right.
And then that's when you started hearing about the backward masking. You turn the records backward, it says Satan, praise Satan, and all this
Right,
stuff, which was nonsense. It's just a coincidence that, this stuff was on the records. But it was bad. It was.
Right.
And then it kept getting worse, like through the mid 80s and then, of course, into the early 90s. And it didn't fade away till... God, I wanted to say before these murders even happened, but I guess maybe in Arkansas, it was still kind of
Cultural waves move in.
right. It was lingering around.
Right,
Not so much about it. I mean, then you had Geraldo coming out with
Oprah.
all these satanic worshiping
Well, what I was
more
gonna
than
say
what you
is
know.
all these
and-
different niches. So, like on the music side, that cultural niche that they were, were accessing, and then all of a sudden, all these televangelists, they got to make a buck too.
Yeah.
Fight it, and then all of a sudden these TV, so it's like this weird negative energy. Not to get all paranormal or anything, but it is. It's almost, it builds up into this. All of a sudden, it's this cult-like
and
atmosphere that's been created.
And the big problem with that is they associated all of that with heavy metal music.
Mob mentality.
It was heavy metal. If you listen to heavy metal, you're a Satanist. I mean, even to the point, like, I liked Iron Maiden.
You love Iron Maiden.
I have Iron Maiden on my arm.
Yes, you do.
But yeah, and people thought, and I was a nice guy. I wasn't worshiping the devil.
You're super nice. Yeah.
I just liked that
Music.
that driving music, man.
Yeah.
I loved it, and of course, also if you listen to even some of the Black Sabbath albums, if you listen to the words, there's nothing satanic
Right.
about it. Well, there's one song, kind of.
Yeah, but wasn't it like mostly an
My
act
name is
too?
Lucifer. Please take my hand. Is one, but I mean, other than that, like Sabbath, one of their albums, they had a song called "After and Forever," and it's talking about you're the kind of people who would have crucified Christ. You're the kind, and it talked about religion, but it didn't talk about religion in a bad way, nor did it say anything hell Satan or anything like that. In fact, Bill Ward from Black Sabbath said, "Man, if you listen to our albums, we were warning people about that stuff, the black magic stuff."
Right, yeah.
And although they kind of, don't get me wrong, they're, the record companies probably said, "Hey, this stuff's selling.
Yeah,
you
let's
guys.
go. Let's go."
Yeah, if you guys put these upside down cross, whatever, we're selling albums, and that's all they cared about. They
Well, I
cared
mean,
about the money.
Look at what was the show with Ozzy? Remember, it is like his family was
Yeah.
the Osbournes or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in retrospect, God bless. I mean, the guy's
Yeah.
awesome, dude. Like,
I met Ozzy.
he's like super
Yeah.
sweet. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I met Ozzy in 1984. He was one of the most gentle, sweetest guys.
Right.
I mean, he was very warm to me. He was very nice. And he said, he goes, what people don't understand, he goes, I'm just taking a Halloween show
Exactly.
to each town. He said, I'm John. He goes, when I'm off stage, I'm John Osborne. When I'm on stage, I'm the Madman Ozzy Osbourne,
Right,
the
yeah,
Prince
yeah.
of Darkness. He
Yeah.
said, it's theater, man.
That's it,
He goes,
yeah.
He goes, but no one could ever get that. They thought my persona was me.
He's playing a character.
He's playing a character. And he was told, like, he was even, when I was around him, he's kind of quiet, kind of even a little shy.
Right, yeah.
But he said when he steps on stage, he turns into that guy.
It's kind of like me. It's kind of
Yeah.
like me when the camera turns on.
Here we go.
Dressel's here.
Dressel's here.
But no. So, people get caught up in panic very easily.
Truly.
Truly.
It was a bad time.
No, but it's in every aspect of our history.
Because I
though.
came from a Baptist religion. I mean, I was growing up
Yeah,
Baptist with my family.
yeah.
So, my mom, I mean, she was pretty liberal. I mean, but I don't think she liked the fact that I was going to go see Ozzy, that I was going to go see Ronnie James Dio, that I was going to see Iron Maiden, but she let me go. But
Kind of like my mom.
But I don't think she agreed with it.
Yeah.
But it's just it got blown way out of proportion, and like in the times that if you're out there, remember those concerts we went to, every time
Put that cigar down and type something in.
we went to see I see him. We went to go see Judas Priest, and again, there's a whole parking lot full of church groups handing
Right.
out,
That's hilarious.
yeah, it was just crazy. They tried to make you feel guilty, and it kind of you'd be honestly, well, I'm a Christian, maybe they're right, maybe,
Right, yeah.
but then it's like, no, this is just fun. I'm not hurting anybody.
Right.
I'm not harming anybody. I'm not, getting into fights or anything like that. It was just entertainment for me. I was a guitar player, and I really loved the musicianship of it.
Right.
The guitarist back in the 80s, someone like Randy Rhoads for Ozzy. God, he was amazing.
You loved Randy
I
Rhoads.
love Randy Rhoads, and the Diary of the Madman tour came 4 weeks before he was killed. So yeah, I'm a musician, and the guy. I mean, a lot of those guitarists were just fantastic guitar players, and they were inspiring to me.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you remember like in the late 90s whenever there was a gang in Mustang?
I wasn't. Yeah,
You probably don't
yeah.
because your kids were very young, but it was called STC. Small Town Crips.
I did not know that.
Dude, yeah. Well, my brothers were older, right? And so, but that's when like, Biggie and like Tupac, like all the like Bone Thugs, all this gangster rap was coming in. You were buying Cass Eminem albums. She still tells me about that. She's
Yeah.
like, she was like 12. But no. And
And
so,
she turned out to be a wonderful young
yeah,
lady.
she is. No. But my point is like, we're in Mustang at that time, which was a very small town considering what it is now.
Yes.
And even that kind of occult activity, there's kids like spray painting STC. There was gang fights in my neighborhood on Jonathan Way. No, I distinctly remember being so scared and like watching out my windows and these two rival gangs like fighting in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And like, but that goes to show you like the power of music and culture, right?
Right.
All of a sudden it's on the news. I remember watching on the news like Mustang cop cars vandalized with STC. I'm like, looking at it now,
Yeah.
I'm like, that's crazy. Like that's insane. But it shows you how quick something can take over a town.
Well, yeah, and another thing that just reminded me of is I can't remember the lady's name that went on this big. She made a big scene about we're going to put warning labels on the albums.
Yeah.
So if you bought a Ozzy album and it had the F word or something like that, you had to be like a certain
A certain age to buy it. That's
it.
probably why you had to buy the Eminem album for a cast.
Or so it was just it got ridiculous. It was just and it was that whole
Yeah.
time was just weird to me. It was,
80s and 90s, strange, huh?
It was. I mean, it was. Don't get me
cool,
wrong.
though.
I had a blast.
The 90s were awesome.
Well, for me, it was.
I was young, but
for me and Randy, it was the 80s. I mean,
yeah.
It was just so much fun. But anyway, so let's go back. We're on the evidence part.
You've already read that first
I
one.
read the first part of it.
Yep. Do we have a slide?
I don't know.
Okay.
Does it say?
No.
Well, when you get to Bojangles, then we'll have a slide. And that'll be.
Hang on a second.
It's a ways.
Oh my God, Keith.
It's 25 pages. I told you that.
The trial was like the Salem witch trials. The prosecution had no physical evidence at all. However, they had witnesses that lied on the stand. Michael Carson was a cellmate of Jason Baldwin, and he stated that Jason admitted to the crime, went into detail about sexually mutilating Stephen Branch. Michael Carson was looking at drug charges and probably made a deal with the prosecution. in turn for his testimony.
Yeah, so and this was a big thing for that trial, that, when he gets up in front of that jury and says, I was cellmates with Jason Baldwin.
Right.
Jason told me that he did this, they're going to believe him.
Right.
But behind the scenes, I'm sure there's a plea deal.
This happens all the time, dude.
Yeah, this guy had numerous drug charges against him. I bet they said, hey, we'll lessen these charges if you get up and say this. And he came out later. I don't know if I got that in, but he came out and said, I lied about that and told Jason, I goes, I'm very sorry I did that to you.
Jailhouse snitches are the most unreliable sources.
Why? Yeah, I wouldn't even allow it. I mean,
know.
I don't know why judges would allow. I mean, we can trust this.
Yeah.
This guy who's a thug.
He's getting a deal.
Who's getting a deal?
Because he's getting a deal.
Oh yeah, of course he is.
You're not going to be a snitch in prison, dude.
No,
And then
no.
unless you're getting out.
Yeah.
Because you got to go back into that hellhole as a snitch.
Yeah, so they probably said, okay, we're going to drop all these charges, but you got to get up and say Jason said these things.
And he did.
And he did.
And then he came back and apologized.
Yeah, many years later. And he said the drugs made him do it. He said, I was so messed up on drugs, man, I wasn't even thinking straight and blah, 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 which is, it's just BS.
Dude.
He was just saving his ass.
He's going to hell. Really, dude, he's going to hell.
Yeah.
All right, Vicky Hutchinson, who was another witness for the prosecution, that stated that Damien and Jesse Miss Kelly took her to the Satanic gathering, the Ebat, said she lied about the whole thing and that she was sorry. Vicky, going to hell. Dude, who does that though, man?
Yeah, she's the one that said she went to the S-Bot. And she made that whole thing up. The funny thing was, she said Damien drove us. He drove us in a red Fiesta. Well, Damien was not driving. He didn't drive. He didn't have a car.
Escort.
But yet.
Ford Escort, in case there's people out there.
Okay, yeah. Did I get that wrong? Okay.
Well, just, how these people are that are watching. I know. They're going to.
Because, there's some, West Memphis 3 experts.
And I'm glad they're there.
Yeah, and if we make a mistake, let us know, man. We're here all to learn. Hey, there's Matt.
Matt?
What's going on, Matt? Matt Toms.
Oh, cool. What's up, Matt?
Okay, so anyway, what was that? We were talking about
Vicky.
Yeah, she made the whole thing up. And the thing is if a good prosecutor would have said, hey, let's vet her. Let's make sure
absolutely.
Let's make sure the story is correct.
Well, the prosecutor we talked to earlier.
Yeah, we talked to a prosecutor right before
a DA, actually.
We went on. Yeah, we talked to a DA and asked him.
And we're not naming names.
We're not going to name names. We may have him on the show.
Yeah, eventually. He seemed down for it.
Very knowledgeable.
But yeah, he was like, I would just get fired before I mess with evidence or put up somebody.
That was so. I mean, yeah, because he's a good guy.
He's an awesome dude.
But
one of the best.
There's other DAs who do not want that embarrassment for the state of Arkansas.
Higher aspirations, maybe.
Well, someone actually made the quote to somebody in a courtroom, and it was an attorney, and he said, and excuse my language.
No bad language.
Here we go.
He goes, yeah, we fucked up, and we got a cleanup job to do.
Oh God,
that's what he said.
Really?
Yeah, he said we fucked up, and we got to clean up. We have a cleanup job we have to do.
Wait, can you say it one more time? What did he say?
No, I'm not going to say the F word because I don't even. Yeah. Like I said, I don't.
But these people. Well, my point is though, you're like for the state of Arkansas. Well, they obviously have higher aspirations than being like the DA or whatever they are. You know what I'm saying? They can't get it wrong. Maybe they're going to run for office at some point.
Well, dude, we'll get into that. Yeah. That's all what this was about.
Matt Sullivan would love this, guys.
Yeah, there was, that one judge. He knew he was going to be running for Senate eventually, and to go up in politic ranks, right?
Right.
So
can't get this one wrong.
He didn't. Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a minute. Go ahead.
Okay, March 18th, 1994, the jury finds Eccles and Baldwin guilty of capital murder in the deaths of the 3 children. Jason Baldwin is sentenced to life, and Damien Eccles is sentenced to death.
Yep.
Sentenced to die.
And and I'm sure at that time, they knew that evidence was not good.
Absolutely.
And they're letting this kid go to
death.
To death.
Yep.
In
1996, the film Paradise Lost, The Child Murders of Robin Hill's Hood premieres. The film suggests that Eccles, Baldwin, and Miss Kelly were wrongfully convicted. A website, WM3.org, dedicated to securing justice for the Memphis 3 is established. March 2000, the film Paradise Lost 2, Revelations, premieres on HBO. The film suggests that John Mark Byers was the actual murderer. In 2007, when DNA collected from evidence at the crime scene is tested, none is found to match the DNA of Eccles, Baldwin, or Miss Kelly. A hair found in a knot used to tie up one of the victims is found to be not inconsistent with Terry Hobbs, stepfather of Stevie Branch. John Mark Byers tells the media that he now believes that the 3 young men convicted were innocent. At a Little Rock rally, Dixie Chick singer Natalie Maines implies Hobbs was involved in the killing of his son and the other 2 boys. September 10th, 2008, Judge Burnett denies the request for a retrial, holding that the DNA evidence produced by the defendants was inconclusive. What in the...
Yeah, I mean, Paradise Lost, that's what got the ball rolling.
Right.
That's what brought to everybody's attention that this case was not handled well. There was basically no evidence against the boys. I mean, there was no physical evidence, and you really kind of need that. And even the circumstantial evidence, like I said, wasn't really that good. I mean,
think about Zodiac.
Especially, yeah.
Think about the Zodiac. All the circumstantial evidence against Arthur Lee Allen.
Right. Right. Had those been bad guys,
They
would have nailed him.
Had the Zodiac been in Arkansas, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Arthur Lee would have been put to death.
No, you're absolutely right.
So,
you're absolutely right.
Unbelievable. In May 2010, Burnett defeated Blytheville Mayor Barrett E. Harrison in the Democratic primary for the state's 15th Senate District. In November 4, 2010, the Arkansas Supreme Court orders a trial court judge to determine whether newly discovered DNA evidence or evidence of juror misconduct justifies either a new trial or exoneration of the 3 defendants. August 19th, my birthday, 2011, Eccles, Baldwin, and Miss Kelly are released from custody following a deal called an Alfred plea, in which the 3 men agreed to admit guilt on murder charges while still maintaining their innocence in exchange for their release without parole, immediate release. Baldwin did not want to accept this deal because he said, "I was not guilty of these charges, and without Burnett in charge, he will probably get a new trial." However, Damien was on death row, and there was a chance he would be executed before a new trial would be set, and because of this, Baldwin agreed to the Alfred plea. Now, on that note, we have a murderer running free. The problem is that officially in Arkansas, this case is closed. The defendants plead guilty to the charges, and this case warrants no further investigation.
Yeah, and that's what they said.
Oh my God!
You know, even when the Alfred plea was done, the district attorney came out and he said, basically, you know, because people were asking, well, are you guys going to further investigate? He goes, hey, they pled guilty. They pled guilty. The case is closed.
Unbelievable.
And so, yeah, they just, like I said, it was so corrupted that.
Well, I mean, for Baldwin, that's what I was pointing out to you earlier. For Baldwin to be like, no, I'll just stay in prison.
Yeah, I mean,
after 18 years, I'll just stay in prison.
Yeah,
because I didn't do this.
Right.
I mean,
and they would have got a new trial.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
So,
but Eccles could have died in the meantime.
Right, because of putting in that motion for a new trial. That mean, you know, that could be 2 years down the road.
Right.
Eccles could have been executed.
No, absolutely.
Before the trial even made.
And he was in solitary. Did I hear that right? He was in solitary confinement for 10 years.
If you get a chance, read his book. He talks about being in solitary. He talks about sleeping and rats are nibbling on your feet.
Oh my God, dude!
A rat on your chest.
Just the conditions were just.
The conditions, he said, were absolutely horrible.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to just reach out. I wanted to point that out about Baldwin being willing to stay in prison. Yeah. In those kind of conditions.
Yeah.
So to me, that points to obviously that had nothing to do with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, okay. There's new DNA tools out there that could extract DNA from the evidence. One of these is called an MVAC. It is a sterile, wet vacuum. Collection solutions is sprayed onto the surface while simultaneously being vacuumed off the surface. It creates a mini hurricane that loosens the DNA material, which is transferred to the collection bottle and later concentrated onto a filter. It can collect up from 36% to 189% more DNA
Can you imagine?
than the swab method.
189%.
Oh my God, dude.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of cases.
Did you see
cracked.
that water?
Yeah.
Ugh, or whatever it is. That's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Now Arkansas has a new state attorney, this guy, Scott Ellington.
Oh boy.
He has made the statement that if new evidence comes into play, that it is due diligence to take a look at it. Bob Ruff from the Truth and Justice podcast, who is awesome, has talked to all the defendants regarding retesting the DNA evidence. They all agreed to it. Ruff has been trying to get the State Attorney General, Scott Ellington, to release some of the evidence to have it tested with the new DNA MVAC system. Bob contracted Mr. Ellington in 2019, and to this day, Mr. Ellington has not returned. Wait.
No, you can use it because it says update
Okay, has
right
not
after that.
has not returned his phone call. Update. Mr. Ellington finally, after being bombarded by comments as to why he was ignoring the new evidence, decided he would release the evidence to have it tested. Well, he won a circuit judge seat. He began that position at the first of the year. So now he's not responsible for getting that evidence, and that will now be the responsibility of the new state attorney. I believe his name is Keith Trestman.
And going back to that, so if you guys watch Truth and Justice, Bob Ruff has a really good what's it called, the
Truth and Justice.
No, the show is the
Forgotten
Memphis 3.
Right, yeah.
Where she's talking about the kids.
Amazon Prime, $3. I
Yeah.
highly suggest it. It's 2
Highly
episodes.
worth it.
Yeah.
So throughout the whole show, he's trying to get a hold of Scott Ellington.
Oh my God, dude.
You know,
he just can't.
He talked to all the defendants, and they gave him the okay for, test the DNA. Let's find out who did this, and also that'll exonerate us.
Right.
And so he's calling Scott Ellington.
Months and months.
Scott's not calling back.
Emails.
So he goes to his viewers and says, all right, bombard this guy with emails, his Twitter account, any account you can find. And finally, it got so much that he did reach out to Bob, and he said, okay, whatever evidence you want, let me know what it is. We'll send it to that lab.
Right.
So he says, great, tells him the evidence he needs. I mean, he goes, I thought Scott was, going to do this because he even asked for the FedEx number that they had to send it out. And so a couple months go by, and he calls the lab, and he says, hey, have you got this evidence? And they said, no, we haven't heard anything.
Right.
So he calls Scott Ellington back. Scott calls him back. Says, oh, yeah, the crime lab said they don't have that stuff anymore. He said they sent it to the police department. And he's going, well, can we get the police department to send this to the lab? And he said, yeah.
Delphi.
And he goes, yeah, we can do that. So, so we're getting towards the end of the year, right? In 2020.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, what no one knows is he's running for a seat.
Right.
A judicial position. And so he's delaying this thing, right? So he still hasn't sent the anything back. Okay, now it's January, and
he's elected to the seat.
He's elected to the seat.
Hassle.
So now Bob is like, okay, Scott Ellington's like, hey, it's not my court anymore.
Right.
That's going to go to your new state attorney. And so they're going to have to do the same thing. They're probably, because he made an update just a few weeks ago, actually, I think in late January.
Right.
But just saying, hey man, I might need all you guys' support again. We're going to have to bombard this new state attorney's thing, his email and everything, to get this DNA tested. And I just like we talked to your guy and talked to him about that, and he said,
how awesome was he, by the way?
Yeah, he was very awesome. Your DA guy. He was, he said, no, he goes, it shouldn't be a problem at all. He said, because I asked him, I said, hey, look, let's say you had a case, 3 capital murders, guys get off on Alfred pleas, so really maybe technically you don't have to do anything because they pled guilty. And he goes, no. He goes, if someone wanted to look at the evidence, he goes, I'd turn it over. If there was new DNA that they could, technology that they could extract.
Right.
And he said, yeah, I'd have no problem with that.
None.
So.
Because he wouldn't be in that predicament.
Right. It just shows you between.
Ethically.
There's good people and there's bad people. And so let's hope this Keith guy is.
I was looking for his name. It's Cressman.
Something like that.
Yeah. We'll put it in the here in a second. I'll throw it over to Pamela. Because I think that everybody should say something to him. Why not? Reach out, dude.
Right.
It worked. It worked for the Scott Ellington thing. It was working until he had something up his sleeve.
Right. And another thing, like on appeals, the boys, everything still went to Judge Burnett, right?
Right.
And so he denied every appeal they sent to him. And so they were like, man, we're gonna be here forever.
Right.
Okay, well, the best thing that ever happened is he ran for Senate. He won. It took him out as the gatekeeper.
Right.
And then the new judge that came in, the attorneys for Jason Baldwin said, hey, this guy's really fair. and he's a good judge.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, so that's so they did get the Alfred plea and they did get released.
Still,
but-
man, the Alfred plea.
But-
Hey, Janice Tucker in chat. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hello,
Says
Janice.
She's an Arkansas native. The boys were scapegoats based solely on their socioeconomic class. Any kid in Arkansas who listened to goth, wore black, and looked weird, quotations, was considered a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was easy for
Same
local
here.
law enforcement to push this off on these boys. The Christian right ate it up with a spoon. It made everybody feel better that the boogeyman was someone like Damien Eccles.
Right. He fit that boogeyman look. And Damien will admit it today. I mean, he was an idiot through that
Yep.
trial. I mean, he would, flip off the camera. He
Lick
would
his
stick
lips. Yeah.
lick his lips. I mean, he made a statement on, I think it's on one of the Paradise Lost, that he goes, well, it's kind of cool, man. I'm the boogeyman. He goes, like, maybe I'll go down as a legend. Like, man, don't look under the bed. Damien might be there.
Yeah, right.
It's like, God, Damien, don't say
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
thing.
At 17, 18 years old, that sounds really cool. But
Right.
Yeah, but he was just a dumb kid. He admits to that now, that how his behavior was horrible, and he shouldn't have acted like that. But again,
Right.
as we were talking about, youth,
Difference.
it's youth
Yeah.
between being an adult and a teenager. You're much more mature as an adult. So, yeah, that was crazy. So where are we at?
Take away. This is your part right here.
Oh God.
I have reader's fatigue. Golly.
Hey, I've read every one of these.
You've done great. You have a great radio voice.
No, I don't, because I stutter. So, Garrett, if the West Memphis Three were not responsible, who is? Let's look at the evidence.
Let's look at the evidence.
Okay. So, see, Garrett, you're gonna make me put my glasses on.
This is my favorite part.
You always get me on this.
I just made a really weird noise because I was going to put my arm down, and this thing was, I was like,
Okay, in Bob Russ' documentary titled "The Forgotten West Memphis Three," he interviewed a former FBI profiler named Jim Clemente, and this is the profile Jim put together. Clemente noted that there was no indication forensically that there's more than one offender involved, because what happened to each of the victims was consistent. He also theorized that the killer knew the victims because he was able to control 3 victims without any help. If some stranger who looked very threatening approached these boys, I think the first reaction of these boys would be to run away and to look for help. There's absolutely no indication of that in this case. So this tells me that this offender was someone they knew, Clemente said. Furthermore, Clemente believes the assailant was a male in his 30s who is either biologically related to one or more of the victims, a family member, or a very close community member. If they thought they could trust the person who was the actual threat, then the person could get close enough to them to control them so that they couldn't run away.
Makes sense.
He told Ruff. Right, it does make sense. If the offender came across the boys as they were doing something wrong or misbehaving, it would have been easier to control and reprimand them, said Clemente. Then perhaps the punishment went too far. Or he's saying perhaps the punishment went too far and it resulted in a triple homicide. This was a result of getting enraged, going too far, and then having to basically clean up the mess, he said. Based on the way the boys were tied up, hands bound on either side of the body to the same side ankle, Clemente theorized the suspect is somebody who works with animal carcasses, a butcher or a hunter. The ligatures are not restraining ligatures. They seem to be more of a practical ligature. But what is the purpose of that? Well, it's to minimize the package a little bit and make it easier to control after they're dead. So is he saying, because we talked about this before the show a little bit,
Right.
to you see strings wrapped around or rope or whatever they
Right.
use. But would shoestrings be weight bearing enough to hold
An 8-year-old boy?
pick up an 8-year-old boy? 80 pounds probably?
Man, I
Shoestrings?
don't know. Yeah.
I think it'd be
Yeah.
really hard, especially.
Well, is that why one of the boys was further away, though? Because he did that and then realized, this isn't going to work?
I don't know. But I mean, no one knows,
No one knows yet,
as Mel says.
unless we crack the case.
Right. When investigators found the boys' bodies on May 6, 1993, they had been jammed into the muddy ground of the bayou, and their clothes had been submerged in the water with sticks. Branch and Moore's bikes were discovered on either side of a pipe bridge not far from the crime scene. Clemente pointed out that the killer took his time to conceal the boys' bodies, clothing, and bikes. He had to spend this time because if he didn't, he would get caught. I think he spent more time on concealing the bodies and the clothing and the bikes than he did on the actual murders. The time spent to conceal them could have been skipped completely if there was no known relationship to the victims, Clemente told Ruff, which makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you're just going to kill these kids
Get out of there.
and you know you're going to be getting out of the scene and, you know, like I brought up, the Blue Beacon was right by there, right? So you got many truck drivers coming in and out. And we know about Keith Jefferson, the smiley face killer, who was a truck driver who went around and he was a serial killer. So if you were a serial killer, say you're getting your truck washed and you knew it was going to take maybe 30, 40 minutes, whatever it takes. You kill the boys. You're not going to undress them. You're not going to take the time to hide the bikes. You have no association with them. And so it does make sense.
That's why I thought that part of the documentary is so compelling. That guy, the FBI agent Clemente, he's something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Psychological profiler. I mean, he hits the nail on the head almost.
Okay, so in addition to the offender being a male who had a relationship with one or more of the victims, Clemente thinks the suspect was from the neighborhood, theorizing that he hid the bodies in order to give himself enough time to establish an alibi. The assailant is also prone to violent outbursts, likely has a history of domestic violence in places of high importance on punishment. I believe there was an incident of over-disciplining of one of the boys. It went too far, and because of that, he had to kill all three of them, he said. So.
I agree.
Yeah.
I actually really agree. I mean, that's the only theory that makes complete sense.
So do you think it was that, we know who you think the suspect is as well as I do, but that maybe it was someone they knew, and he got there, he's angry, like, man, you were supposed to have been home.
Yeah.
And he beat him so severely that he's like, oh, he panics. And then,
right.
But don't you think that at that point, because I'm trying to put myself in their shoes, would I have ran or would I have stayed and watched my friend get whooped by his dad?
I think that I would be like, well, because I go back to the fact that when they talk to the supposedly last person to have seen him, the African American guy, I cannot remember his name from the documentary.
Yeah.
He said that they were going camping, that they had sleeping bags, which they never found.
Right.
Right. And so, and somebody else claimed that they said that they were running away. And so if I'm talking to my buddies, if I'm being maybe physically abused by my parent, because it seemed like the other boys knew about it. And so it would, I'm in a violent home.
Well, the Byers boy had just got a whooping that day.
Right. So it's like, I got to run away. You know, everybody when you're a kid, like, I'm going to pack my bags and run away, put some Vienna sausages in a bag or whatever, you know.
Well, I mean, it's pretty well known that two of those three boys were in homes where they were being physically.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so I think
there was bad abuse in those homes.
Maybe the one that wasn't was the one that ran and was found further away, right?
Michael Moore.
And so that's kind of my theory, is that it was somebody that they knew and they knew to be violent, and that they were just saying, okay, I'm just going to take another whooping and get out of here. They didn't think they were going to die, you know?
Yeah.
I'm just going to take another ass whooping. And, it's cruel, but to them it's the norm. That's what you were saying.
Yeah, to them it is normal. And so that.
Yeah, I know if I run, I'm just going to be worse.
That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're one of the boys and you knew, like, let's say Stevie was the first, that he beat him unconscious, and as a kid you're looking down thinking, oh my God, my best friend's dead. Am I frozen or do I run? I mean,
one or the other. There's no in between at that point. And so that's why I think it's interesting that one of them was found further away. Because to me, there's only, we always go back to fight or flight, right? But in the Delphi thing, we talked about maybe freezing and flight. Because I think for a child, fight is kind of like probably a third option.
Right.
I think the first two options would be you either freeze, you run, or then the third option is like you fight, right? And so I think that could explain maybe why that third victim was 27
feet away from the other boys. Yeah,
Yeah.
the two boys are found close together. Michael Moore was found 27 feet away. So yeah, you could be right.
Right.
But
I normally am.
see, and then because I never know when to bring up my points.
No, go ahead, because let's have a discussion. Go ahead.
So could one person do this?
Yes.
Okay, but also and maybe some of them are viewers who really know this case can verify if this is true or not. But I heard this afternoon on a podcast that each boy, the knots that were tied, were all different knots.
Right.
Now,
And
if it would have been one person, wouldn't those knots have been consistent?
what did I say though?
I don't remember.
Glad you really take what I say. No, I said,
I
okay,
don't listen to
first
you.
off, I would want to really verify that because that would be crucial. Like that
Yeah.
would be a massive detail in the investigation,
And
I
you-
think.
Right, and I've never heard that before. Like I said, I heard that on a podcast. It's a well-known podcast, very popular podcast.
Say it.
It's called Morbid.
Yeah.
Two girls, and they're very successful. But they said, yeah, that all the bindings, the knots, were all different on each boy, which would lead me to think if it's just me, I'm tying the same knot, and.
But here's what I said. I said, okay, first off, I would want to know if that's actually factual because if that's a fact, a cold hard fact, then we need to know that. That's it's different with Delphi. We're talking about the cause of death.
Right.
We know that there are ligatures in this. We know that there are knots being tied and things of that nature. So if that's something that's being left out, it need not be left out, right? And the third thing, or the second thing I said was, if I'm tying somebody up, the fact that all three boys were consistently tied right hand to right foot, if there's more than one person, you'd be tying them like, wait. Like yelling out, hey, wait, are you going right foot to right leg or are we crossing? Or, for me, like that is consistent enough across all three bodies being tied right foot to right
I
leg.
agree, and I think too the other thing to consider is the size of the boys. Because
True.
they're not necessarily all the same size.
That's a great point. Pam was always bringing it in.
regarding the length of the shoelaces. Some shoelaces, someone's got a bigger foot. The shoelace
That's
may
a
be
really
longer.
good point, right?
Yeah.
And then here's my thing on the knot thing. We have made, I don't know how many knotted blankets as Christmas gifts.
Right.
And how many times have I had to sit down and show you guys, this is how you tie this knot, so that the knots are consistent around the edge of the blanket, and we can't
Great
do
point.
it.
Yeah.
We
of course
can't do it. I have to keep showing you how to tie the knots.
That's not
That's my
surprising.
point.
Yeah.
I felt so stupid making those.
I don't even know
Because
what
like
those
I
are.
get confused.
I don't even know what those are.
But no, I see what you're saying.
So I think the
I'm kind of-
consistency, is.
I'm interested in because there are people out there who believe that the West Memphis Three are the killers.
We do have one in the chat room.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's not Larry.
No, it's not Larry.
Larry is just being facetious.
No, we do have a gentleman in the chat room who says, based on Jesse Miss Kelly's confession, that what more do we need?
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. I will say this in defense of his confession. He made the statement that Damien grabbed Stevie first, okay, and that Michael Myers took off, and he goes, and I ran after him.
Michael Moore.
Not Michael. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Michael Moore.
Yeah, Michael Moore.
Michael Myers.
No,
Oh, God. I'm going to get comments on that one.
you're fine.
But no, so Michael Moore took off. And then Jesse said, I ran after him and held him there until Damien and Jason came over. Now, in his defense, Michael Moore was found 27 feet away
Right.
from those bodies. His confession, which was pretty ridiculous. I mean, if you really look at it, because they asked him, what time, Jesse, did you get there? And he said, I got there about 9 a.m. Now, they know that, okay, that timeline's not going to work.
Kids are in school.
Kids are in school. Well, so is there another time, Jesse? Yeah, I think around noon. Okay, well, so they were feeding him like, well, was it getting dark?
They were fishing.
Yeah, it was getting dark. Okay, well, I can work with that.
Yeah.
So basically, they were kind of feeding him the answers. Even like they asked him, they said, so Jesse, what were the boys tied up with? And he said, Damien and them used rope. Well, we know that's not true.
Right.
They were tied with shoestrings.
Well, isn't there a break in the two
There
interrogations?
supposedly
too?
is a break in interrogations, and what that's implicating is that the interrogate, what do you call them? Interrogators?
Interrogators, yep.
The detectives were
Coercing.
him, feeding him, and then hit and record
Classic, though.
after he would get the story correct. But I mean, if you listen to it, he's all over the place.
Yep.
I can see some, the prosecutor said, well, he got confused.
Well, can I just point this out really fast? Because oftentimes, like in these cases, we're like, those detectives coercing those people, those guys are a bunch of dumbasses and they suck. And, I'll often be like, they're going to hell. But also,
Did you quit saying that?
but, hey, listen, to put into perspective the human mind. Okay, so oftentimes we're talking about the victims and the families. And we often talked about the investigators as well. But these guys, again, coming from a small town, never having been through this experience before, under extreme pressure. Okay, and they're thinking in their tunnel vision, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to I hate to say man, they really sucked, but they kind of it kind of sucks. Like, honestly, if you look at the evidence, if you really lay it all out, you're like, man, this is a really terrible investigation. But sometimes I kind of feel for these guys a little bit because they are in that room trying to figure out they just saw this heinous crime.
Yeah.
They want so badly to solve this. Does it make it right? Absolutely not.
No.
And I do believe that he was coerced because his interrogation in the first interrogation and his second interrogation, all of a sudden he's getting closer to the time. He's like, oh yeah, around sunset, And so
yeah.
they're like, oh, okay, yeah. And you said it too, oh, we can work with that.
Am I wrong too in thinking that isn't it kind of typical when you're doing these types of investigations / interrogations? Of course, you immediately separate your suspects, but kind of go for your weakest link first.
You do. Yeah. Who's going to break first? Who's going to spill the beans? Well done, Pamela.
Yeah, because they talked to Damien, and Damien even said whoever did this was sick.
Yeah.
And he never admitted to it. Jason, of course, and that
Jason would still be sitting in prison if it was up to him instead of taking the Alfred plea, but for Damien's death sentence.
Yeah, and
so he would never have confessed.
Yeah, right. and what was so unfair is for instance, okay, Jason was mowing his uncle's yard during the time of the crime, but they would not let him testify on Jason's behalf. So it's everything they had for an alibi, they didn't want it in there. It's their minds was made up. These
they all had rock solid alibis.
Oh, all of them.
Yeah.
All of them did.
Dude, it's just truly devastating, honestly.
It's scary because
it is so scary.
Because that could happen to anybody, and it probably does all the time.
It does. It probably does.
But how easy to take 3 juveniles
troubled
youth from lower socioeconomic class whose families can't afford to
you're gonna get a public defender.
Get some high-powered attorney to come in and
fight this case.
help them fight the case. I mean, you've got 3 perfect little scapegoats.
Yeah.
You do see it a lot, honestly.
Yeah. So there's I was really surprised how many people do believe that those kids are guilty.
It's dumbfounding.
Yeah, I looked on.
No offense to anybody that thinks that, but for me, personally, I can't wrap my head around it. When you look at the cold hard evidence, what's in front of you, man? Come on, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, There's a lot of Facebook pages. Well, there's West Memphis 3, and there's maybe about 20% when I was looking at comments saying these guys were guilty, they did it, blah blah blah.
Right. How? What are they saying though?
Well, I think a lot of it is because of Jason, or not Jason, but Jesse. His confession is a lot of people don't understand. Why would you?
False confession is a huge thing.
Yes, it is. It is. And that. And
I just want to go home. In fact, I'm going to separate myself from this, just saying, hey, I ran after the boy and held him down. I didn't murder the boys.
Well, and that's...
You know what I'm saying? And you hear that a lot in false confessions. Most of the time, the person that's making the false confession is distancing themselves from the crime to minimize it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the detectives thought.
Right.
They thought he was telling the truth, but they thought also he was kind of not putting too much, I'm not going to say too much of my involvement on this because I don't want to go to prison. Right. And they even actually they drew a circle and they said, Jesse, do you want to be in the circle with Damien and Jason?
You want to be a suspect or do you want to be a witness?
Do you want to be outside of the circle?
Right.
And so it was almost kind of a threatening statement.
You see that on the First 48 all the time. They bring people in, right? And they say, do you want to be a suspect or do you want to be a witness?
Yeah.
How are we going to go? Which road are we going down? Mm-hmm. But, and to their credit, because a lot of it's, I love watching the Tulsa PD. Because, dude, those guys work nonstop. I think they have a system. One of them, it might be...
Hi, Mona.
Hi, Mona. What's up, Mona?
Mona, where have you been? You're very late. Shame on you.
Hey, she was drinking tea and eating biscuits.
No,
Hey.
she's not from England.
Well, she is in my book. So, hey, anyways, but it may be Mobile, but they work on these cases 24 hours, so they rotate.
Sure.
But in their credit, the cases they're working on are not triple homicides. Most of the time, it's like they're in a car, friend pulls out a gun and just whacks somebody.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can either, was it a drug deal gone bad? Because you can either say, hey, I had nothing to do with this, and you can be a witness, or you can be a suspect.
Right.
Because if you're in the commission of a felony, then you're going up for first-degree murder as well, buddy. And so
Yeah, Jesse's, there's just too many inconsistencies.
he has a 72 IQ, man.
Well, and he also said, he goes, well, they were choking. He goes, Damien was choking the boy. And he said, well, how was he doing that? And he said, well, he had a big stick.
Yeah.
And, well, there's no ligatures
Right.
on the throat. at
Right,
all.
dude. It's completely inconsistent.
You know, they had, I've seen, yeah, this is one show. I know I've shown crime scene photos in the past, but these I just couldn't do it.
Thank you for leaving those out.
Yeah, they're just heartbreaking.
In good faith, we couldn't. Yeah.
There was one, and I just didn't have time, that I could have just cropped it because
Yeah.
I wanted to show when we talk about the possible predator, the animals, you know,
Right.
post-mortem injuries,
Right.
which we'll talk about here in a minute. Okay, so let's talk about Mr. Bojangles.
Mr. Bojangles.
All right. So, do you want to read this one?
No, you know that we could just really just talk about it. Go ahead and read it, but
Well, no, I mean,
Jared Gardner wants to know what's in the bottle, G.
it's not alcohol.
well,
I had a really rough night. That's not mine. No.
so it's
I had a rough experience like a week ago, so I'm good for a while.
it's white Zinfandel for you people who want
Yeah,
to know.
Garner, no. I'm drinking a DP tonight.
Yeah, the last time Garrett drank too much, about 3 shows ago.
I felt my wife said that it looked like the hall was inclining and I was just falling backward.
Okay.
Anyways, okay.
At 8:40 p.m. on May 5th, 1993, the West Memphis Police Department received a call that a bleeding black man had entered the Bojangles restaurant located near where the 3 bodies were eventually discovered. About 30 minutes earlier, and gone. See, that's why you should read into the women's restroom. Officer Regina Meek arrives at the scene at 8:50 and questioned Marty King, the restaurant's manager, through the drive-in window. She didn't even go
my
in.
God, dude.
She just pulled up to the drive-through window. King reported that the man with muddy feet, wearing a white cap, black pants, and a blue shirt, had blood on his face and arm and appeared mentally disoriented, but had left the restaurant a few minutes before the officer arrived. When employees entered the woman's restroom, they discovered blood smeared on the wall. The officer leaves the premises about 9 p.m. without ever setting foot inside the restaurant. So that's crazy to me.
It's absurd.
But I think in the movie, if I remember right, and I don't know if this is true or not, but she got a phone call that the bodies of the boys were found and she left.
Oh, wow.
So that's
Oh, my God, though. Like,
maybe that's possible. But another officer should have been.
oh.
Yeah. So unless they
Wait,
have
you're reporting to a call with a bloody guy in a bathroom,
and
we
you've
just
got 3 missing boys,
Yeah.
and you just now
Right.
heard
Again, I think
that
this
it
goes
is
back
a
to-
homicide.
I think this goes back to just not enough experience.
Oh,
but-
well, it gets better. Hang on.
good.
So the next day, Detective Byrne Ridge and Sergeant Mike Allen returned to Bojangles to collect blood scrapings from the restroom wall. Unfortunately, the scrapings were never sent to a crime lab to be analyzed. And
Unbelievable.
get this, were later reported lost. No additional interviews were ever conducted with Bojangles employees about the incident. In the Eccles-Baldwin murder trial, prosecutor John Fogelman argued that it was a complete absurdity to think the criminal, who took pains to hide bodies and clothing and bicycles, would immediately thereafter go into a public place all covered in blood. Critics of the Bojangles theory also point out that the bleeding man reportedly wore a splint on one arm, a fact they say would have made it exceedingly difficult to tie up and murder the 3 boys.
Not him.
Yeah, I say it's not him either.
I mean, and the simple fact that.
But you know what makes me sick is just so they got the blood scrapings. They were so set on the 3 guys that it was like, we're not even going to look at anything else. And not only that, they lost the evidence.
Let's go
now,
back-
was it purposely lost?
Hey, Hey, let's go back to the Zodiac though. Well, when the cabbie is murdered,
Right.
and the Zodiac killer is actually leaving the scene of the crime, and they're looking for an African American,
Right.
right? And so they completely dismiss the fact that they call the Zodiac killer to the window and speak to him.
Right.
So it shows you kind of like in the throes of this chaos how dumb we can be.
Yeah. But I mean, if you collect evidence, I mean, you got to take it to the evidence lab.
Well, you would
right?
think.
But you know, some people, like even in the OJ case, like they collected evidence and a guy just threw it in the back of his trunk and actually went home and
Oh, yeah, just-
and left it in there. So
Oh my
Didn't
God,
log
dude.
it.
it didn't log it in. And it's just like, that's just
Yeah.
bad police work.
Right.
So,
Checks and balances, man.
all right, so I'm going to pull up a slide here. That is the Bojangles. I never heard of that, but it's a fast food chicken restaurant. We don't have them in Oklahoma.
No, we don't.
But
Because I would have eaten there.
this is the,
By
yeah,
now.
this is the original building. It's no longer the Bojangles. Okay, this is Mr. John Mark Byers. Okay, he was another person who people suspected, but he did have a solid alibi. Mark was riding around with his wife looking for Christopher. So, and many people saw Mark all over the place during the time they think the crime happened, which I think what was it, between 6:30 and 8:30?
Right, yep.
Is that correct?
Yep, I think that's the timeline. Yep.
Yeah, he was seen there, so we can mark him off the list. So far, the suspect at Bojangles, we both
No.
Do we all three say no? Pam, what about you? What do you think about? Do you think it's interesting that maybe this guy was covered in blood and he could have
Oh, absolutely.
been
but,
mentally ill?
But
and,
given that the boys were submerged in water, it looks like he would have, if that's where the blood came from, that he would have just cleaned off in the creek when he
Right.
submerged the bodies.
but he's mentally ill.
Well, here's the other thing. Here's the other thing is you don't want to get caught, so you would go through the bayou.
Yeah.
Gina says it's hard to hear while we're showing slides.
Oh, okay. Let's take it off then. Yeah, we'll take that off. I'm sure some of you guys know what this guy looks like. We'll leave it with just our ugly bugs on here.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so
Yeah, and the other thing, which we'll talk about, is I think that the fact that the injuries, I believe, were post-mortem, would lead one to believe that there. Okay, so two things: that he wouldn't have blood on him. Okay, and then the second thing is I'm pretty sure that West Memphis is close to Memphis, and I love Memphis. Like personally, I love. Have you been to Memphis?
I've never.
You
yeah,
spent time.
Yeah, we did a show in Memphis.
Memphis is cool. Love Memphis, but don't go into the wrong part of Memphis.
Oh
okay.
man, the whole
I'm telling you, hey, I'm not hating on Memphis because I love Memphis. I go there quite a bit.
town.
Any town, exactly. But
even Elvis's
so to
house is in a bad part of town.
right. So to think that like somebody that's not too far stretched, I don't think, to have somebody that's bloody and like covered in mud to come into like a restaurant. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't
Right.
think that necessarily immediately attaches him to killing 3 people,
Right.
Right.
3 kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we say no on Mr. Bojangles,
No on Mark,
no on Mark because he did have a solid alibi. So
and he was a little bit over the top. I think Pamela was saying he was like a kind of like a WWF like wrestler, kind of like when he would speak. You know, it's kind of like we were talking about with Ozzy. He almost had like a persona that he was putting across. So I mentioned before the show that before I was like really kind of knowledgeable on this. I had heard about Terry, which we'll get into Terry, but I didn't know what Terry looked like. So when I saw Mark's videos, I was like, oh my God, that is like highly suspicious. That guy's acting weird, but he does have an alibi. So, and
yeah, I think with Mark Byers, what it was is he loved the attention.
I agree.
He loved the attention and he played it up, man.
Right.
And, you know, because even Christopher, brother said, he goes, Mark didn't care about my brother.
Right. Yeah. I
He was
never
an
cared about him.
Extreme disciplinary guy. He would, you know,
Make him take
He
it-
was the guy that
Hey,
would pull his pants down and whip him with a belt.
Hey, and I will tell you, that kind of piqued my interest, though, whenever he said he would make him go stand in the kitchen with his pants down and wait for him to come,
Right.
which not only is physical abuse, but that is
Mental abuse.
demasculinizing this kid, right? And so tying that into the actual crime scene was interesting. That piqued my interest because I was like, that's almost what I felt like this person was doing to these boys. And I actually think it was accidental, and then it just turned into this I gotta fix it kind of situation. But I don't think it was Mark. But whenever I heard that from Chris's brother, I was like, ooh, that's interesting. Now, I do think that there is a reason why he was so over the top. I think the reason why he was so over the top is because he was using it not so much for the fact that he loved the attention, but more so that he saw it as an opportunity to change the way people looked at him. Because it was becoming obvious that he was abusive to his wife and his kids.
Yeah.
And so I feel like he was being over the top as to change almost the public's perception of him. So
Yeah, let me say real quick, too, to everybody, these are all, we're alleging, we're not.
allegations, yep.
Yeah, I mean, we are not saying these people are guilty. We're just, and basically, we're just going by what we've read and what's public record.
Right.
What, who does fit this profile,
Right.
perhaps. And again,
Life after life, man. Trying to keep this case alive, dude. That's
trying
why
to keep it alive.
That's why
And-
that documentary is called The Forgotten.
right. So these, like I said, no, everybody's innocent right now. We don't know who killed those boys. I mean, but we.
It wasn't Bojangles, I'll tell you that much.
Well-
Bojangles. Whoever you are.
It's so funny they call him Mr.
I know.
Bojangles.
That is a scary, little serial killer name, though.
It is
Like-
the Bojangle killer.
Yeah.
Okay, so our next person of interest is Terry Hobbs. Terry fits the profile. Now again,
Let me fix my mic for this one.
yeah. Well, I'm like I said, we're not saying anybody's guilty. We're just going by what's public record. Okay, so Terry fits the profile to a T. He was a male in his 30s.
And he's a douchebag.
He's going to sue you
Was
like
that-
he sued
I
Natalie
don't
Maines.
care.
Was that part of the profile? Douchebag?
Jeez,
Douchebag,
dude.
yeah.
Douchebaggery?
We'll get into it, but keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was a male in his 30s. He was known to physically abuse his wife.
Douchebag.
His daughter Amanda had stated that he sexually abused her and Stephen. He supposedly masturbated in front of them.
Douchebag.
He knew all the victims. He lived in that neighborhood and had a good reason to cover up the crime with enough time to establish an alibi. And discipline was very important to him. He used to give Stephen severe whippings, or do I say whoopings? With a belt.
Whoopings.
A whooping. The DNA evidence from one of the bindings was a hair that was found. It did not match Eccles, Baldwin, or Miss Kelly. However, it did match Terry Hobbs, the stepfather of Stevie Branch.
Not surprising.
And an interesting fact, they found another hair that was consistent of a friend of Terry's named David Jacoby. Now, before we get into this, Garrett, you did some good research about it was mitochondrial DNA.
Yep. Mitochondrial DNA.
So even though this was matched Terry's, it could also match how many other people?
It was like 1 in 946. Let's just round it up to 1 in 1,000.
Okay.
And the population of 30,000. So it could have been, 300 people?
Right.
30,
and
I
we'll
don't know.
just say
Do the math.
even with this hair,
30 people. 30 people.
Steve,
Which, hey, I'm telling you, dude, the 1 in 30, you know what I'm saying? 30 people it could have been. That's pretty,
yeah.
for me, that's a lot. So.
Yeah, but also we also have to look at this was Stephen Branch's stepfather. So of course
Right.
maybe one of his hairs were in one of the ligatures, but
Randomly got tied up in the knot.
randomly got tied up in a knot. Now some people say also that hair was found on another boy's
Right.
bindings. But
Do we know that?
I also heard that the shoestrings were mixed up. Like one was white, one was black. So perhaps it was one of Stevie's shoestrings that was used.
Got you, yeah.
Or someone, you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, and we talked about touch DNA in the Delphi case too, and that can get a little murky,
Yeah.
right?
Very
You're in a
much.
car with each other, and
Yeah, and then also the hair that they found of David Jacoby. Well, Terry was at his house that day.
right.
So
Well, and the numbers on that were way less. It was 1 in 400.
right,
something.
that was even harder.
So it would
to
have been
try to prove.
1,000 people. Yeah.
So David Jacoby said on the day of the murders, sometime between 5 and 5:30, Terry came to his house where he and Jacoby played guitars while Amanda amused herself with toys. About an hour later, Hobbs left saying he was going home to see if Stevie was there. Amanda stayed behind. So the one thing, if my kid was missing, I wouldn't be playing my guitar.
And for the audience, this guy plays guitar all the time. I mean, like, you would. How many guitars do you think you owned, dude? Like, total?
I probably about 15, 16 guitars.
At one point, it was like 26 guitars.
Well, I thinned it down. I
But
don't have 20
to
guitars
to your
anymore.
point, though, like, yeah, what the hell are you doing, dude? Like, why aren't you out? Why are you playing guitar
Okay,
with
so I'm
your
gonna
boy?
play. I'm gonna play the devil's advocate or the defense attorney for.
Go ahead, go ahead.
For him. Hey, Stevie was late. Who was going to think that he was going to end up murder?
True.
Eventually Stevie would have came home. So
Right,
Why
I got
don't,
you.
Why don't I spend some time with my buddy, play guitar?
He's an asshole, anyways, right?
Yeah.
Like, you gotta turn. We gotta say that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, so
he didn't like his stepson that much, anyways.
So if I was just a defense attorney, I would say, hey man, he
Yeah.
didn't really think his kid was killed.
Right.
He thought
You
eventually,
can't convict him on that.
Right. He thought
Yeah.
Stevie would come home, and that's why he was.
It's
hanging
just
around playing
building
guitar.
more of a profile that this guy is kind of a prick. And we'll get into it why in a second. I mean, there's multiple reasons, but
Derek's going to have to do a deposition here.
dude,
So Jacoby recalls, hang on, yeah. Jacoby recalls that Hobbs returned after a while and told his friend he couldn't find Stevie. So Jacoby volunteered to help look for the boy with Hobbs. Driving the two men searched the neighborhood for approximately 10 to 15 minutes.
all right, we're good. Yep, let's go. He's not out here.
Then dropped me off at my house and said he was going to check a few other places for Stevie. Hobbs returned later and picked Jacoby up once again.
Establishing an alibi.
Yeah. We drove 2 more times, nearly the same route we had driven before, Jacoby says. Hobbs again took me home, dropped me off because it was getting dark, and I was going to change clothes and get a flashlight to search further. I do not know where Hobbs went, but I expected him to come back to get me. Hobbs did not return. Instead, Pam came over, and she and Jacoby met with other people looking for the boys in Robin Hood Hills. According to Jacoby's, I'm never going to get that right, timeline, Hobbs was out of his sight 3 times. Between 6:30 p.m. and well past 9 p.m., which fits in with the police's timeline of when they believe the murders happened.
And with what's his name? Ruff, Truth and Justice documentary guy.
Bob Ruff.
Yeah, Bob Ruff. That's the timeline he was able to establish too, just by tracking down the canvassing notes that they never circled back around to,
Yeah.
which is insane.
Yeah, and there were so many
God, dude.
witnesses said that we saw the kids playing
Yeah.
at 6 o'clock. We saw, and all these times didn't work out. But the last guy he talked to, like you said, the African American
Yeah.
gentleman said he's probably the last one to see him because he saw him heading toward.
Yeah.
Robin.
He's like, where are you guys going?
Yeah, and he said that was around 6:30.
6:30.
Yeah, about 6:15, 6:20,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
So that's when they probably would have entered. So it sure looks like someone's setting up an alibi. Do you think? Okay, so
Let me take off my glasses real fast. Yeah. He's
so the first time he goes over there, do you think Stevie's and the boys are dead at this
No.
point? Okay.
I think that he's missing. I think that they're like, they should have been home by now. And he's like, I'll play guitar for a little bit. And then goes and finds them.
Yeah,
And then we know what happened from there.
allegedly.
Allegedly. No. And I mean, but it goes back to the narrative that we were drawing earlier from Clemente's profile, right? That
Right.
maybe this is a disciplinary action that got out of hand, you know? And it also goes back to what we were saying earlier about one person knows all 3 boys.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right, continue.
All right, so we'll move on.
Terry did it.
Show's over.
Yeah.
According to Garrett, Natalie Maines, lead singer for the Dixie Chicks, was sued for defamation by Terry Hobbs. Terry Hobbs says Maines alleged that he was involved in the killing of 3 young boys, including his stepson, in West Memphis, Arkansas in 1993. Maines took part in a rally in Little Rock, Arkansas in 2007 and wrote extensively on the Dixie Chicks website about new evidence in the case. All the band members were named in the lawsuit, but Hobbs focused mostly on Maines. Money. Terry Hobbs' deposition was on July the 21st, 2009, and I encourage you guys to watch it.
Please watch it.
It's entertaining.
He's a cocky, just arrogant. Yeah.
And the whole thing's on YouTube.
Doesn't mean he's a murderer.
Doesn't mean he's a murderer. What Terry did not know is that Natalie's attorneys could ask Terry any question they wanted, and boy, did they. It was almost like he was on the stand for the murder of the children. During the deposition, he was cocky, he laughed at inappropriate times, and a lot of his answers were, I don't remember.
I don't remember.
They talked about his abuse to Pam, bringing up an incident when Terry hit her. He acted like she had it coming.
She had it for 3 days.
Yeah, the lady is questioning him and going, so it's okay to hit your wife? And he's like, well, she was on me for 3 days.
Ask her.
Ask her. Yeah, ask her.
And she's like, well, did you do it with a closed fist? Is it that part in there?
I did not put that in there, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Well, because she calls her brother and her dad and is like, what does a broken jaw feel like?
Yeah.
And
that was not a backhand. He said he claimed he backhanded her. He said, I've never hit
he
my
moved
wife.
his hand like this for you viewers. He's like, I just did that.
Like a slap.
Yeah.
But a broken jaw, that's a fist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's lying through his teeth on that.
Dude, he's an idiot.
Okay, so get this. So they talked about the abuse with Pam bringing up the incident when Terry hit her. He acted like she had it coming. He shot Pam's brother.
What?
Pam had called her brother Kevin Hicks and said that Terry had hit her. So he came over, and Terry had his .357 Magnum in his back pocket. The two started to tussle, and Terry pulled out the gun and shot Kevin. Now, he said the gun accidentally discharged while they were on the ground, which, he pulled. If he had it out in his hand, that's aggravated assault. Which he did get. He did have to.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Unless the brother's behind him and it discharges, if it's in your back pocket and you're tussling, how does a gun discharge in your back pocket fly up over your head and then hit somebody?
That's exactly what I'm saying. He had to pull it out.
Smart bullets.
Yeah, and then he told the judge it was accidental discharge.
Right. What ended up happening?
I don't think much of anything. He got, I think, probation or something.
Oh my God.
It was pretty bad.
But yet these three dudes with no evidence are Amy Eccles is getting put to death for wearing them, being a devil worshiper. Okay.
Also on that deposition, he was asked, had he seen the boys the day of the murder, and he said he had not. However, there are witnesses that claim they saw Terry with the children that day. So, but then again, a good defense attorney could say, hey, they're lying.
Right.
My client was not with those boys.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He doesn't remember. Obviously, everything he answers to is, I don't remember.
Yeah. And then during the autopsy, they find bite marks, right? So they take a impression from Miss Kelly, Eccles, and Baldwin. Don't match, right?
Right.
Well, Terry had a partial that all of a sudden it's missing. And
he got his teeth pulled, right?
Yeah. Well, him and Mark Byers, actually,
right.
Mark got all his teeth pulled out as well. This is afterwards. But
that was 4 years afterwards.
Yeah, but the thing is, Pam said that she later found a lockbox and she opened it up and it was Terry's partial in there, as if he didn't want anybody to see that or use it.
Are you gonna talk about the catfish place? And
Yes, we're going to talk about that. In fact, I think that's the next thing up. Another strange thing that happened during when the kids were missing, Terry had went to pick Pam up from her job at Catfish Island. He then tells Pam, I still haven't found Stevie. Pam says, call the police. The police take the report at Catfish Island instead of meeting them at their house. Now, wouldn't you think you would meet them at the house just in case Stevie was to maybe show up back home?
Yes.
Yeah.
You absolutely would.
Because there's always that chance that Stevie's just really late, maybe and there was something
that he didn't want them to go home for.
Right.
I believe.
So, yeah, for some reason, Terry did not want the police at his house. Now, again, we're just speculating. People speculate that if Terry killed the children, that he went home and changed clothes before he went to pick Pam up from work and did not have time to wash the clothes. There's supposedly a witness who saw Terry doing laundry later that night. Now,
which is odd.
Yeah. Now, I bet this guy believes laundry is woman's work.
Well, don't you?
You damn right I do.
Pam, don't you have something you should be doing right now?
Pam, get off that computer and go wash my shirt, honey.
I wish Cass did laundry.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly. But
hey, Cass, make sure that house is cleaned up before I go home.
But again, I'm speculating. I don't know. Maybe Terry did laundry, but you can kind of tell his personality is old school. It's the women cook and they take care of the babies and they do the laundry.
If you don't,
then you're going to get the hand.
Yeah.
So,
I find it extremely odd that didn't have the cops come to the house.
Oh yeah, that's just a huge red flag.
Well, I know Pam was abused, right? But I mean, if this was Cass and I'm going up to her, I'm like, hey, one of our kids is missing. She's like, call the cops. Let's go home right now. Like, she wouldn't want to take do an interview at her place of work. That's weird. That's odd.
Yeah. But another thing is like, okay, what I'm kind of wondering about, and Pam, if you see this, if anybody can answer this, who witnessed him doing laundry? Does that
Weird.
mean there was an extra person in the house?
Right. Yeah. Weird.
I don't, unless their laundry room is outside.
Right. Well,
so
are there siblings? Were there siblings?
Well, yeah, but I mean, you had the little girl, Amanda,
Right.
I think was her name, and she was 4. I don't think she'd be a viable witness.
No. Yeah, for sure.
So I mean, I don't. If anybody knows the answer to that, like why and how
Do we know that Terry was doing laundry?
that Terry was doing laundry late at night? That's
Well,
kind of
even
weird.
Clemente said though, like also part of his profile was like somebody that changed the way they were living before and then after the murders, which is significant,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, I mean, in every case we do, and we talk about that.
So let's talk about something you and I kind of discussed before the case, and we did talk about a little bit earlier, but I still like one person. Wow, I just don't know. I mean, I know we talked about this already, but what Pam? We already talked about this, but I just want to kind of cover it again. I mean, what are your thoughts? One person controlling 3 little kids. Even if I'm the dad, like I said earlier, I might freeze, but I'm thinking, my God, my friend's dead. I'm running, which you kind of made Michael Morton get to chase him down, but there's 3 kids.
I mean,
So
by time
wouldn't have been easy. Yeah, and then we need to also find out what's significant. Has anybody answered about the knots, the different knots being tied? Because that's something I heard. Like I said, that's kind of crucial. That would almost point to maybe 3 people.
is the chat room pretty active tonight? Okay,
It has
good,
been.
good.
So that's, I mean, yeah,
Man, but I work. Listen,
everything points at Terry. I understand that,
Yeah.
but do you think? And David Jacoby really seemed heartbroken by this whole thing.
I agree. I agree.
And that he's being pointed at as maybe
He's
said
being
like
used as an alibi.
right. He's being
Right.
used as an alibi. Do you think there's any chance, like we kind of talked about, were those tears of guilt?
No, man. For the listeners that listen to every episode, they probably have picked up by now that I work with kids on a daily basis for 11 years now. Kids of all ages, kids all the way, even up to adults. Okay, so my job mostly with kids, and I will tell you, there's a big difference between an 8-year-old boy and a 12-year-old boy. We call that the age of reasoning, right? So
Yeah.
the age of reasoning, and like in my family, is 8 years old. At 8 years old, you know the difference between right and wrong, right? Before that, you have some leeway. You might get a kid that's going to run away from you, right? And,
Yeah.
But like when my kids turn 8, that's when they know, like, if I say something, they're going to freaking do it, right? Or I don't punish my kid. But, I'm
Right.
I like to try to, develop them. And so even at the gym, I see that. And so for me, that age right there, if somebody that they knew was abusive, was mean, was a disciplinarian, came up to them and said, all 3 of you stop, get on the ground right now. Now, and was like serious about it, I guarantee they would do it. I just think they would.
Right. But what about when the violence took place? Like when he says get on the ground and then he starts beating, say, Stevie.
Did he beat them though? Did they
had to? Yeah, it looks like to me. I looked at the autopsy photos, and we need to also talk about that as well.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Well, first let's
Okay. Good.
a blunt force trauma to the top of the heads of 2 of the kids.
Okay.
They did look like it was like a stick, maybe a big stick out there.
Okay.
Which again is something else the guy said, that the profiler Clemente said something about this wasn't planned, and so he used what was available to him
Right.
in the environment. So found a big stick, used it to hit the kids over the head with or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's consistent with some of the sticks they found. They did find, I think, 3 or 4 different sticks, which again, why would you use? I mean, 1 stick for you, 1 stick for me, and 1 stick for him would kind of still point to other people. Now we don't know for sure that positively
they
these
didn't
sticks
find the
were,
murder weapon.
right.
Right.
Yeah, so they had, it was like it was horrible. That's the reason I said like I couldn't show these scenes, but just horrible abrasions on top of the head, like contusions.
The bite marks are confusing.
The bite
But
marks are confusing.
In rage, that happens sometimes.
Yeah,
though.
and so let's talk about the castration. a little bit.
Wait, real quick, while we're on the blunt force trauma,
Yeah.
because you said 2 of the kids had blunt force trauma and the other one didn't.
And that's again is
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I'm not positively. I
Okay,
think
it's
most
fine.
of them. Yeah, I do think 3 of them did have, because 2 of them deaths were from drowning, and the
Right.
other one was from blunt trauma, from
Okay.
blunt force trauma,
And
which I think that was Michael
the one that ran away.
Moore.
Okay.
Right.
So that's kind of my question though, is like as Terry, or I'm sorry, as whoever is tying them up individually, you know, one of them starts to obviously get into that flight mode where like, okay, this is going seriously wrong, right? He's got 2 of them tied up. Do you think that he could go run after the third one and be like, okay, this is out of hand
Well,
at this point?
we have to
boom, boom, boom.
We have to remember the bindings were post-mortem.
Oh, they were.
Yeah, from what I understand, the
How-
bindings were post-mortem, and that's what Clemente said, because that was easily for him to get the boys where he needed them
Right.
to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay.
So if it's post-mortem, these kids weren't tied up, if he's correct about that.
Okay.
Which makes
I
it
didn't
even
catch that, yeah.
more of a case for more than one person.
No, it does. Yeah, that definitely does. That definitely
Right.
does. Because I could just see, you know, Terry or whoever tying the boys up, and then the third one, Michael, being like, I got to get out of here, running.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes and just bangs him over the head. Well, now it's a murder. Bang him over the head. Bang him over the head.
Yeah.
Done. Hide everything. Get the hell out of here. Establish an alibi, which he did perfectly.
Right.
So, okay. That's why I was curious about that.
So the castration, of course, you know, when you looking at the pictures of the boys, it was a horrible. I mean, it looked like they had been knifed, you know,
Right.
just cut, mutilated. But what they were finding now, later in the case, is that, what do you call the people who study herbologists or
Turtles. Yeah, I don't know.
what do you know, Pam?
Turtle people.
Herpetologist.
Herpetologists? Is that it? Right. So they had 2 or 3 different ones. Look.
Yeah. That was interesting.
And they did say this is consistent with turtle marks and turtle bites.
And I know that like if you were to compare a pig to a human, you know, there's a lot of similarities. If you were to compare a fish, like a bass, to a human, not very similarities. But have you ever seen what a turtle can do to a fish when you have it, like, you know, when you catch fish and you put them on a string? Have you seen that? She's from the farm. She's definitely seen it.
She's no farm.
Full farm girl over there. But dude, they like, it's vicious. I mean, it is vicious.
Yeah.
Like turtles can do some massive damage. So
Yeah.
want to lose a finger? Put it in a pond in Oklahoma.
Right. Right. So, I mean, and also when I was looking at the pictures, I did see what looked like, if you were just a layman looking at it, and not that I'm an expert, but it looked like there were like little knife scratches.
Okay.
But also that lined up with what a turtle's claw was. And so they said the turtles, and I'm sorry to get graphic, but with the castration, the turtle would go in between the legs and push apart
Right.
to get to the soft tissue.
Okay. Yeah.
And testicles, penis,
Of course,
is
yeah.
all soft tissue.
Right.
It's easier for the animals to
Right.
mutilate and to eat.
Probably
So-
face, right? Was
So
that-
yeah, so if you got scratch marks inside the thigh,
Right, yeah.
that'd be in the turtle spreading the boy's legs
Got
to
you.
get to that meat.
Yeah.
Also, one of the boys, I can't remember who, just the left side of the face was just almost completely gone.
Right.
Again, a professional said this looks like probably 2 or 3 turtles feeding
Mm-hmm.
on the face.
They can just eat up fish, man. That's what I'm saying.
I know,
Like,
I know.
Yeah,
They're- yeah.
like
And Pam, what's those turtles called that are the really big ones? Alligator or something?
Alligator snapping turtle.
Alligator snapping turtle. Vicious, man.
yes, yeah.
Huge claws, very sharp claws, big, strong
I
jaw.
used to get them on a line, just cut their freaking heads off.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Vicious, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you don't want them in there while I'm trying to catch bass. Every single one, I'd take a gun out there where you just pop them, pop, pop, pop.
Right,
Just
right.
kill them because they eat everything that's in there. You can't keep
Yeah.
a damn fish alive.
Right. So during the trial, we didn't talk about the knife.
Right. Yeah.
They, which, do you think that was planted? They knew about the knife out there, but anyway, what we're talking about is the prosecution got word that behind Jason Baldwin's house there had been a knife thrown in a pond or a lake or whatever, And so they were so sure it was there, they even called the media and said, "Hey, we got something big getting ready to happen." So the media goes.
It's
out there.
oddly specific. I'm sorry.
Right.
but-
So they pull out this knife. It has this big jagged edge on top.
Right. Yeah.
Which they brought it into evidence at the trial, and they did have an expert saying, yes, this is very similar to the cuts I'm seeing on.
Even that, dude, you cannot connect that to anybody.
Well, here's the kicker.
It's hearsay.
Yeah, the knife was thrown in there a year before the murders.
How were they able to
did
determine
fi-
that?
Because it was, I think it was Jason's mom said, "Yeah, I found it and I threw it away," and it was like a year later. So they even, they used this knife, which they probably knew that it had nothing to do with the case. But
That's unbelievable.
yeah, it's very unbelievable. But
It's called a ham sandwich, though. What you were just talking about, I mentioned that and hanging out with my brother the other day. You know what a ham sandwich is?
yeah, I love ham sandwiches.
I just love ham sandwiches. No, it's when the cop, they go to a crime scene and oh shit, I just killed this guy and there's no gun. Like, hang on, pull one out, put the handprints on. It's called a ham sandwich.
Okay.
If you're a cop, you got to carry around a
Yeah,
ham
I mean
sandwich
that's
everywhere.
and that's very rare. I
And,
mean,
it's super rare.
super rare.
Yeah. I was just
In fact, I just listened to about 2 weeks ago about something that happened like that, and the cop was talking about. He goes, man. He goes, that doesn't happen very often. He said, first of all, you'd have to carry this other gun with you constantly,
Yeah.
and just in case, I accidentally shot this
it's called
guy.
a ham sandwich. Yeah. Get
Yeah,
your ham
so
sandwich. No,
very,
but
very rare.
The thing about the knife, I think that the fact that it is oddly specific, but also the fact that they made it into such a circus was just all a part of the case that they were building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. I will say this: I was kind of shocked a little bit. Paul Holes and Billy Jensen, they have their podcast.
Yes.
And they were talking about this case, and Paul Holes says he doesn't think this was post-mortem wound. He thought it was these were done with a knife.
That's interesting.
And Paul Holes is
The man.
well known for I've studied many cases, and he was seeing certain cut patterns that he said, this looks like a knife to me and not a turtle.
But the looks of it doesn't matter, though. It's how your body reacts to the injury that matters. Because if you're dead, your body isn't shooting off like blood to try to cure it, right? And so that's how they're determining if it's post-mortem or amortem. Is that what they call it?
Yeah, but they're in the water too. Would that make a difference?
Well, no, because what's inside your body, how the inside of your body is reacting is probably coming from your brain and the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right? And so if you're dead and your heart's not beating and your brain's not beating, then you're not going to be sending those signals. So when they're able to go inside, they can see if it's done after death or before death.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's and I love your guy. I love your boy.
I
Golden
do,
State
too.
Killer. I'm just saying, but
I love Paul Holes, man.
That's why they were able to determine though that these were.
I was so disappointed because it's like, I love Paul Holes. He's interesting, and he solved the Golden State Killer case or helped with it. And when he said that, I was like, no,
There's a
Paul,
new
you're
Paul Holes
wrong.
in town. There's a new Paul Holes in
Yeah.
town. No, but does that make sense though?
Yeah, but when you got that many herpetologists, I want to say
turtle people, just call them turtle people.
when you got that many turtle people,
When you got that many herpetologists
looking at that, and you have 2 or 3 that are saying, this definitely looks like
Right.
turtle feeding.
That's my thing. Paul Holes is obviously brilliant criminologist, but what does he know about wildlife
right.
and
He's
injuries
not
and-
right. He's not an expert on
Right,
that,
yeah.
but he is an expert on homicide with knives.
right,
So-
for sure.
He does have that, but I do disagree with him. I do think
Yeah.
it was all post-mortem
Well,
stuff.
Our resident wildlife expert, Aunt Doug, says he's had a small snapping turtle eat a 10-inch bass in 2 bites.
Yes, dude. We're talking
Yeah.
about bass and turtles. I'll tell you, dude. Pick them off.
Yeah,
They're ridiculous.
I know.
But
and
yeah.
he was saying also that, what looked like to be the scratch marks of the turtle, he called it something, pick something where it's a form of torture where they take the knife and they just kind of cut them a little bit.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
just
For
to-
sure.
Part of the torture, part of the thing that they get off on.
Let's talk about why this is important really fast, though. Okay.
Okay.
Turtles or not turtles? Post-mortem or before death?
Okay.
Is because if you're saying that this was done by more than one person, then these were probably done while they're still alive, right? As a torture tactic. Why would you torture somebody if they're dead unless you just want to mutilate the body? And so, but the devil's advocate, if you will, to it pointing to being one person is that it was a crime of rage and passion. They did what they had to do, and unfortunately, they left them in a state to which they were susceptible to being eaten by turtles and other wildlife.
Yeah.
Therefore, it looks like
you see that all the time. I mean, even
you do,
with,
yeah.
You know, bodies that are just dumped out in the woods, and different predators come and they.
Evansdale,
Yeah.
man. I mean, Evansdale,
And
yeah.
didn't even some of Ted Bundy's people, I think,
Right.
suffered from that, from animals.
Well, and it makes
getting
it
to 'em.
difficult. But in this case, I don't think it was meant to make things difficult. I think that the bodies were concealed literally to buy time to form an alibi.
Yeah.
Is my point. Like,
Yeah, I do too. So.
But hey, we talked about similarities. We didn't. Okay, so we're gonna talk about it right now. Can we talk about something?
Similarities.
I mentioned this to you over the phone. Was there are some similarities that I'm seeing between this case and Delphi? And
I agree.
Okay, what
I
are some of
agree.
the similarities you've noticed?
Well, the similarity I see is because I know you and I kind of have a different take, which I think makes the show a little interesting.
yeah, okay, yeah.
Is the possibility of two offenders, more than one guy.
I think in this case, it is more likely that it could be two people than in the Delphi.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree because in Delphi, probably pulling out a gun would scare two young girls
Right,
pretty bad that
right.
you could keep control.
Right.
And we don't know. I mean,
We don't know.
well, not only that, but like say this murder, we don't know if the perpetrator had a gun and said, "Okay, everybody on the ground."
We don't know till we know. I mean,
Right,
Terry
'cause
was
that-
known to carry around.
Because then that kind of
357.
changes the playing field a
does.
little bit. Because then it's like, oh, okay,
Okay. Whoa.
You know.
Whoa. Like, yeah, I got
right,
you. Yeah.
yeah. So that's another thing I kind of wonder about. Did this guy come in there with a gun?
Right.
That would make a little more sense from the boys not running because he could shoot them.
Right.
And you would think with there was apartments. I don't know if you looked on Google
Yeah.
Maps.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was apartments like right by this place.
Right.
You would think with the brutal killing of these little boys, they would have been screaming. Now a neighborhood is right surrounding this area.
Unless it's normal.
Yeah, that's a point. Good point.
You know what I mean?
And they might
Unless
just
this
think
is
it's-
normal to them and this is the environment that they've come up with, and stepdad's being an a-hole again. He's going to make me take off my clothes. He's going to tie me up and teach me a lesson. Oh, Mikey's running. Got out of hand. Got to bat him over the head and hide evidence. So,
Yeah, that's true.
but that's it. That's the
That's
only
a good point.
because the apartments were really close. They're leveled now.
Well, even if you look, where that dead end is, but has a stop
Yeah.
sign, right to the right of that's a house, and not that, but it's a block
Right.
of houses, and so, but like you said, it sometimes, and this sounds horrible, but sometimes kids screaming can almost sound like they're just having fun.
The
You know,
flower incident. What I was
Screaming and laughing can
Yeah.
be very similar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, Dylan used to remember that little. He was like, and he would just like scream for no
Get
reason.
up and run in there real fast, and he's
And
like
it just
having fun.
and it's just him just being goofy.
Right. So that's one thing. The other thing for me though was, and Matt Sullivan said this really well, was like sometimes these towns and these communities and these families are essentially just frozen in time. And we've seen that same thing with
Yeah.
West Memphis. They say that back in '93, it wasn't uncommon to see kids riding around on bikes and playing in the woods. Actually, a lot of kids played at Robin Hood Woods or Hills or whatever. And so, but if you look at it now, right, if you look at the same place now, it isn't like this vibrant kind of popping city. They've leveled all the apartments. This place is frozen in time. This is what West Memphis is known for. And the root of it, obviously evil.
Yeah.
But secondly, kind of a mishandled case, right? Or
Right.
a very mishandled case. So the similarities are just, for me, just like stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah,
So-
one other thing I wanted to bring up is, I don't know if you heard this, but and again, this is a rumor that possibly the boys saw something they weren't supposed to see. There was rumors that Terry Hobbs was bisexual and
Okay.
was having sexual relations with men in that area.
Which could lead to there being more than
And
one person.
Can you imagine if your stepson saw you? And in West Memphis, a gay person probably gets hanged.
Well, and and also, you know how your stepfather is to you.
Right.
So when you come up on that, obviously the last thing you ever want to encounter. But secondly, knowing the repercussions of what you've just encountered would just probably be so terrifying.
Right.
Right? Like, oh God, what am I going to do this now?
So then that kind of
It does.
goes with my theory. If, say, there was 3 or 4 guys involved in this activity,
Right.
you got 4 guys now, or 3 guys, able to control this situation rather quickly.
Yep.
It explains the knots being tied differently
Yep.
because 3 different people did it. Probably getting the boys knocked out a lot faster than one guy chasing them around trying to hit them.
But it goes back to what I believe, where that also is, it's messier. Now you're talking about 4 sets of clothes that you got to clean, 4 sets of people that are being seen by their neighbors and acting differently.
Yeah.
It's 4, or 4, not 4 sets of people, 4 different people,
Right.
that are leaving possible DNA at the crime scene. And so for me, it also becomes, so there's always that side of it too, where, and with Delphi, that's kind of where I was going with that. And also this ties into the Elisa Lam thing, where we were saying it would be impossible for one person to, I'm going to go against my own theory here, impossible for one person to climb up with a dead body. We talked about in Delphi and in Lisa Lam, moving of bodies and also containing bodies, whether they're alive or dead, whether they're 8 or 80. It's always a difficult task. So that's
Yeah.
why, like, what your theory actually holds weight, is because to me, I'm like, man, it's not until we know, we don't know. And so,
Yeah, and that, which, I think possibly if this Keith guy who's the new state attorney is cooperative, we may get answers.
did we put his name in the chat?
I did.
Awesome.
Yeah, so if you guys
Hit him up, dude.
Yeah, everybody in the chat room, email or
He works for us, right?
yeah. Well, we're out of state.
No,
so
I know,
it's-
but no,
Works for the state of Arkansas.
no, I know,
State
but
of
like, if you're
Arkansas.
from Arkansas, he works for you guys.
Okay, so Regina, you're on the line. You gotta.
just check it out. There's nothing. Well, because the guy we talked to is like, he's a great dude, and he's like,
He
man,
is.
like we would just be as transparent as possible.
Right.
Which is also goes back to the
Well, it's
Delphi
like
thing.
what Damien said. He goes, it's going to have to take all these people who were involved in our case to move on to other things, get fresh people in there that are willing to look at this
Right.
evidence and not worry about embarrassing the state of Arkansas
Right.
for wrongly convicting these
Or
kids.
what Matt Sullivan? Man, I'm calling some Matt Sullivan.
Got
He
some
better
Matt
be
Sullivan.
giving some. But legacy, dude, protecting your own legacy. Oftentimes, pride is like somebody's biggest weakness. And I mean, especially the dudes. Honestly, I work with a lot of alpha males, and they're too prideful. I tell them all the time, I'm like, stop being an asshole. Like, just like say you're sorry for what you did. But no, legacy is really important, especially to guys that are, or even females that are in power. How many times have you had a new boss come in and it's just like complete Napoleon syndrome?
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, like calm down,
God,
dude.
so many.
And
have
so,
had those.
yeah, it is. We see that a lot with cold cases, though, don't we?
Oh yeah.
Fresh eye. There's a name for it. I forgot what it's called.
They say fresh eyes.
Yeah, fresh eyes.
Because they'll rotate detectives, from what I understand. Like when they have a cold case, and they'll give it to a new set of detectives and say, hey, go through this, see if we missed something.
Well, good detectives do that.
Yeah, and that's what they should
Yeah.
do. But I do think that if this guy is cooperative and he does turn over this evidence, that we may have an answer, by the end of the year of who committed these murders.
Right.
But also let's talk about this real quick. I know we're running over.
No, we're good.
But okay, let's just say that we find some more Terry Hobbs DNA.
Yes.
His defense attorney can always say, well, of course, those kids running
Right.
out of the house.
Yeah.
They could have picked up Terry's hair,
Yeah.
Um,
It's going to be difficult.
yeah, and I think what the DNA expert said, because they kind of talked about that a little bit, and she said, well, she goes, the more DNA of one person that you find, the higher percentage that you do have your criminal.
Right. Of course, yeah.
But of course, the defense is going to say, oh, he
Lived with them.
Yeah, he lived with him.
But what if it's spread across all 3 kids?
Well, then that's where it makes it a little more. It
Right.
probably was, but again, a defense attorney is going to say
He knew all 3
these
of them.
kids were at our house at some point. Sometimes,
Here's best case scenario is they find out who it is and they bring them to justice.
right, and exonerate these.
Oh, well,
these
here
3 kids.
I was gonna say the second best case scenario is even if they come up with a bunch of DNA, but they're not able to tie it in for one reason or another, like you just brought up, at least exonerate these kids, Because even what I told you earlier about, like, if you've been committed a felony and you've been to prison, you can't make money off of that. Like, because there's people capitalizing on the West Memphis 3. And I'm not trying to say that they should make money on it, but what I'm trying to say is that what's been surrounding them for their whole lives, they don't have a freaking chance, dude, these guys.
No, they don't.
They don't have a chance, man. Like, they really don't. They're struggling out there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And they didn't do it. So.
Right. So, I mean, let's hope that we get some justice at the end.
Jesus, dude, they come back with the DNA and it's like they're all 3 guilty.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Like
what about the worst scenario? But, I mean, even if that happened, though.
Closure.
They pled guilty. Mm-hmm. They're not going to go back to prison, even if they did these crimes.
Right.
They still put in an Alfred plea. They pled guilty. Time served.
You can't try them for
double
the same
jeopardy.
Crime. Right, yeah.
They're not. They can't take them back. So the worst that's going to happen is just their credibility and all that lying they did is down the tubes. Right. And I mean, but their life will be miserable for the rest of their lives.
Well, that's what I was going to say about Terry.
All the people they betrayed. I mean, you had Johnny Depp backing him, Eddie Vedder, Natalie Maines.
Yeah.
You had all
massive support.
And then
Johnny was supposed to call me up today, but because he was going to call in.
Johnny Depp?
Yeah. But he's got some stuff going on with one of his girlfriends back in Cali, so he's not going to do it. But I'm going to try to. If we do another Memphis 3 episode, though, he said that he would be on.
He did not.
He sort of got he did.
Really?
No. But I will.
See, now Garrett used to live in Los Angeles, and he
did know some weirdos.
He did know some celebrities, so you got me.
Yeah,
got me.
Hey, but no. If it does come back, though, like, let's just even say that it comes back and it's Terry's DNA across 3 people.
Yeah.
And they can't tie it in because his attorney is like, yeah, well, of course he knew all 3 kids, like you were saying. At least closure. Yeah. Right? People are going to want justice for sure.
Well, I think if you found skin cells, definitely in the bindings.
It depends on the DNA, right? Yeah.
Then you're guilty.
Oh, yeah.
Because you weren't tying the kids' shoes. I mean, you weren't tying them before they, so I think if they found DNA from, because they said, God, did you see the show where he handled the rock?
Yeah.
And they took that vac and they sucked it up,
dude.
and then all his DNA was inside there.
Right.
So,
but again, this stuff's been sitting around. I mean, there's no telling, right?
Well, she said that even cases 40, 50 years old. She
did say that. She
said that it has been successful with this MVAC system.
Yeah, I guess in my head I was thinking about going back to like the original crime scene, but they would never do that. That would be dumb.
So I think we all need to email this new state attorney and
hit him on his social media.
Yeah.
Don't email. Email sucks.
Yeah, you gotta
get on his Twitter.
Right, you got to bombard it. I mean, he had the Scott Ellington. I think he shut down his Twitter account and everything else. But it just got got so much that he just had to find. But how horrible was that he could have helped solve this case, and he knew that he was going to delay this because he was running.
He's a shitty leader
for a judicial seat, right?
He's a shitty leader.
Yeah. So
that guy
dumped it into this new guy's lap.
I'm not going to go into specifics at all, but I'll tell you the guy that we talked to earlier is one of the best leaders that I've ever been around in my entire life. And you could tell just from that 10-minute conversation we had, turned into like a 15-minute conversation, how ethical he is in his decision making.
Yeah, I'll tell the people. I asked this guy. I said, let me just ask you something. Let's say you tried a case and on capital murder, and you convicted these guys. They got out on an Alfred plea, and now we have new DNA tools. Would you turn that evidence over? And he said, yeah, absolutely.
Without question, dude.
He said without question. Yeah, no problem. I would sure.
He said, and you were like, well, what if it made you look really bad? And he said, well, I'm working for my boss. And my boss is voted, right?
He's elected official.
He's an elected official. So if I get fired, that's on me. And I'm just going to go get another job. But I'm not going to do what's wrong because ethically, obviously. But essentially what he's saying was there's like a chain of command and I trust these people. And so obviously in West Memphis or wherever district this is in, that's my last point that I was going to make about Delphi is that there is some murky, shady stuff going on surrounding this case, much like in Delphi.
Yeah, and that's another case.
Matt Sullivan, take a break from Delphi for a second. I know that they really need you, but do the West Memphis 3. Get on this guy, please.
He's dedicated to the Delphi case.
I know,
man.
but hey, Matt Sullivan gets on your case, and you start all of a sudden Start getting paperwork at like 3 a.m. You're like, oh my God, Sullivan's on the case.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he gets things done.
He does get things done. Well, guys, it's like 9:30. So
Hey, good show.
It was a very good show. And
show.
thank you all for showing up. And Mona, if you're still out there, we are going to do a show on the Long Island serial killer. I saw that you wanted that, and so
I've been wanting that for a long time.
yeah, and Garrett's been wanting to do it as well. So I'm going to let you do most of the research instead of me
Dude.
this
I'll
time.
just watch movies.
You'll just he'll watch documentaries.
Yeah.
No research.
None.
But anyway, so thank you everybody for showing up
make
tonight.
sure you like and subscribe, dude. Come
Like
on,
and
we're
sus-
almost to 1,000.
Hey guys, we're almost to 1,000. We're really close. So please share, like, tell your friends.
Get us to 1,000 and put something in the chat or in the comments, and I'll think about doing it.
Oh, there we go.
I'll do it in the future. Okay.
Yeah, and we are going to have a giveaway for some of you guys if you want to be involved. We just don't know how we're going to do it yet.
Hey, can I tell them about that? I know we're going over.
Yeah,
Who
go
cares,
ahead.
dude? Who cares about it? Whatever.
Go ahead.
It's our show.
It's our show.
The military medium did a reading for one of Cass's best friends. I think it's okay. She for Gail's mom. I think or something. Anyways, hey, she said it was one of the coolest experiences.
Yeah,
And he also did a reading for my wife.
and he did us.
And yeah, he did dude. It's a super cool gift.
Yeah,
I mean,
and he
very valuable.
He nailed both of ours.
Yeah, dude. It was.
But I
weird.
mean, like your friend who committed suicide, he said,
Yes.
and there's no way he could even found that on the internet.
No, even my grandfather. We went back and double checked. There was nothing.
Oh my God! And remember, he said the
Rosy
red cheeks
Yeah,
and
yeah.
nose, and then you showed me that
and
picture.
and the shirt with the pocket.
Yeah,
Oh my God! Like nailed it. And it was a long haul trucker.
yeah.
That's all he did. I was like,
So we've got
wild.
2 free readings that we are going to give away to one of you guys. Not tonight, but we're going to make you work for it.
Yep, absolutely. We'll
Right.
figure out a strategy.
That's right. We just got to figure something out.
Hey, are you ready to do a post-show meeting after this?
You're actually going to stay for a
Oh
meeting?
yeah, it's like 10 degrees outside. What am I going to do tomorrow?
Yeah, we got 15 inches of snow coming in this weekend, and even the meteorologist said that Monday. He said, "I'm not kidding." He said Oklahoma may be shut down.
Yes.
They're looking at 18 inches in the Northwest.
Get your toilet paper if you use it.
Oh God! I mean, I don't even want to go.
Wash your
to
hands.
Yeah, I mean, driving by like Walmart, it's packed, and I know there's not going to be anything there.
No.
Because, I mean, even when we have a little bit of snow, people freak out and they go buy all the bread, they buy all the milk, they buy all the eggs. And
You know how much I like to eat too, man.
I know. Pam, I think we're good, aren't we, on supplies?
Close
food?
enough.
Yeah, I'll be fine.
You sound like the old West. We're good on supplies, ain't we, baby? As long as I got my Miller, right?
Yeah.
Casey Miller in there.
And my Death Wish coffee.
My 20 ounces of Death Wish coffee tonight, folks.
Hey, thank you guys
I
again.
don't
Make
know
sure
why I have chest pain.
I don't know why I have chest
Yeah.
pains.
this guy, man. God bless you, Pamela.
But anyway, so guys, thank you so much for tuning in.
We love you.
We do really appreciate it. We don't take that lightly. It's you guys make the show. I mean, without you, me and Garrett wouldn't do this. So,
We might do it.
well, we might. Yeah.
We'll probably do it, honestly.
Yeah.
But we love having you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess we'll never go back to the podcast thing, right? Where we don't go live.
I don't even know what that is.
Well, no, that podcasting would be if we just pre-recorded a show without our faces and we just threw
I've
it up
already
on.
erased that from my memory. So
Yeah. I
this
think
is so much more fun.
this is a whole lot more fun because we have people, that's involved in it. So.
and sometimes they say mean things. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it was funny. I was going to mention this. Me and Garrett were laughing because before the show even started, we had 4 thumbs down.
Greeno was doing it.
No. So it's like I told Garrett, I said they must have watched me do my notes or something.
Yeah,
or,
no,
right?
that's when
Oh,
you
and
know
a-
you've made it.
And a nice little love note, too.
Oh yeah, someone left a funny little comment, and then they pulled it. So
Larry's been trying to call in, and I told him I wasn't going to give him the number because he was going to get on and cuss.
yeah,
No bad language.
Go to bed, Larry.
go to bed, Larry. Pennsylvania time. It's 10:35 right
Seriously,
now.
bro.
All right. Well, you guys, good night. And
We
we
love
had a
you.
great time. We love you all. We'll see you next Thursday. And stay warm.